Okay. Good morning. Good morning at 5 in the morning. This is like, I guess I should say like good morning Vietnam because we're about to get into the trenches. When is it ever going to be a better time to watch Eric Adams go on PBD? If not 5 a.m. on like a Sunday morning when I can't sleep. And Chad is back on stream, thank God. I had to rethink my crack pipe concealment regime. Really? Something as simple as a crack pipe? Why are you guys up at 5 in the morning on a Sunday? I'm seeing chatters that I see at like better hours when I stream at a more normal time. But whatever, man, you guys are fucking freaks. Before we get into that, actually, there's some stuff going on domestically. Besides Eric Adams going on a podcast that I love to hate watch. Apparently, a judge has ordered Trump to stop the ICE raids. So, immigration officials can't stop people in LA based on their race or spoken language. Judge rules. Judge rules thing that normal citizens in America would assume was already illegal. Oh my God, look at that. Hold on. The image is gone. There we go. Yeah, like judge sides with Constitution in stunning ruling. The order bars the detention of people unless the officer or agent has reasonable suspicion that the person to be stopped is violating U.S. immigration law. Translation, cops are going to have to try harder to conceal the fact that they are detaining these people based on the fact that they have detected a brown person near them or detected a brown person that also happens to speak Spanish near them.
Now to some breaking news overnight with a federal judge ruling immigration officials in Southern California cannot detain someone solely based on their race or the language they speak. NBC's White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor is traveling with the president this morning. She's near his New Jersey estate. Yamiche, good morning.
Good morning, Laura. In a lawsuit that could have national repercussions, late Friday night, a federal judge in California directed immigration agents to stop racially profiling in the course of seeking out immigrants and mandated,
please stop doing a thing that's already illegal,
that the federal government ensure detainees have access to lawyers. The judge granted 2 temporary restraining orders in response to a lawsuit filed last week by immigrant advocacy groups. A fuller hearing is expected in the coming weeks. Laura.
So yet another thing that Trump will promptly ignore, obviously. So a federal judge on Friday ruled that California can actually solely rely on someone's race or the fact that they speak Spanish to stop and detain them. U.S. District Judge Mame Owuse Mensah Frimpong, hell of a name, issued a temporary restraining order after a lawsuit was filed by 3 men who were arrested as they waited to be picked up at a Pasadena bus stop for jobs on June 18th, and after 2 others were stopped and questioned despite saying they're U.S. citizens. Frimpong's order bars the detention of people unless the officer or agent, quote, has reasonable suspicion that the person to be stopped is within the United States in violation of U.S. immigration law. There's absolutely no way to make this determination without it being based on this. Like, please somebody give me the way that you determine visually and very, very quickly that you suspect somebody is in the interior of the United States in an unlawful basis. You are obviously going to be relying on racially discriminatory practices or detections to make that assessment. What else would you use? You think they're accidentally rounding up like white people and doing this? They're fucking not. So another thing that won't matter. We only read that to see the reaction from this school. Tom Homan, who sounds like the dumbest motherfucker alive.
Your reaction to this Biden-appointed federal judge out in Los Angeles.
Biden-appointed.
Apparently expected to.
It's laughable. As low as my opinion of Republicans it could not possibly be lower. I suspect even a Republican judge would have made the same ruling on this. So the fact that they're a Biden-appointed federal judge doesn't really mean anything.
To issue a temporary restraining order halting your lawful operations. She says, I think it's important for the court not to burden others.
Didn't he also authorize ICE to defend itself against protesters? Is this true?
Law enforcement activities.
Does ICE have a right to defend itself?
Look, people need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need this totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, you know, get articulable facts based on their location, their occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed border station walks up to them at for instance, a Home Depot. And they got all these articulable facts, plus the person walks away or runs away. You know, agents are trained. What they need to detain somebody temporarily and question them. It's not probable cause, it's reasonable suspicion. We're trained on that. Every agent, every 6 months, get Fourth Amendment training over and over again. These officers are really good at what they do. And if this judge is making...
That's a really awesome thing to learn, that ICE agents have to be reminded every few months that, yeah, the Fourth Amendment exists and you cannot violate it.
...decision that's against what these officers are trained, what the law is based upon, then they're going to shut down operations.
You'd think any training would be about like updated techniques or new information to provide to these people, not just constantly reiterating the Constitution. But I guess to these people, again, it needs to be drilled into them and reminded multiple times.
I think that's your end game. They want ICE to stop doing this, but if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE is doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
And you're not going to stop coming. Tom Homan, thank you for getting up with us this morning.
He's not going to stop coming. Okay. Awesome way to end that. Trump authorizes ICE agents to protect themselves using whatever means necessary. I cannot believe this is fucking real. He's really saying ICE has a right to defend themselves. Order comes after California raids resulted in clashes with protesters and shooting outside of a Texas detention center. This was yesterday. Trump has given, quote, total authorization to federal immigration agents to protect themselves after a series of clashes with protesters, including during enforcement raids on 2 California cannabis farms. I am giving total authorization for ICE to protect itself, just like they protect the public, Trump posted on Truth Social on Friday, adding that he was directing the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, and Border Czar Tom Homan to arrest anti-immigration and customs enforcement, or ICE, protesters who impede immigration enforcement operations. Trump said he told the administrators to, quote, instruct all ICE, Homeland Security, or other law enforcement officers who is on the receiving end of thrown rocks, bricks, or any form of assault. Oh my God. Again with the thrown rocks. Again with the fucking bricks. Dude, this is like, again, if I search National Review, will it come up? Because they were the only one covering this. No, like LAPD Chief of Police Cinderblock. Consider block. I meant to put cinder block. This. Okay. So, a couple of weeks ago, Pisco and I were reacting to an episode of Her Take, and they found it imperative to show this clip of the chief of police for the LAPD saying that they were overwhelmed and that they needed help. One, it was taken out of context because when he was saying they were overwhelmed, he was referring to the fact that Trump had mobilized the National Guard without authorization from Gavin Newsom, and that the National Guard being deployed was actually contributing to chaos, obviously, and escalating it instead of de-escalating it. So he was saying, we don't need this. But then he goes on to this diatribe about how, like, there are protesters that are bringing cinder blocks in backpacks to the protest, and then they break the cinder block up into little pieces and they distribute them, and then they throw them at cops and police cars. He didn't have any evidence for this. He just said this is a thing that's happening. If it will fucking load, I can tell you. Okay. LA police chief admits officers overwhelmed as thousands of rioters block freeway, torch cars. That's not why they were overwhelmed, but whatever. Okay, this. We're overwhelmed, McDonald said in a Sunday evening press conference. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. Commercial-grade, aka fireworks that you can buy at a fucking store. That can kill you, says the man with a gun and lots of state power. They'll take a backpack and the backpack will have a cinder block in it, he continued. They'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to people to throw at officers and throw at cars and other people. So he's describing, they literally institute communism. Communism is when you take a cinder block to a protest and you break it up into a bunch of pieces, distribute it so it can be thrown at the cops, obviously. So anytime I see, like, again, these, like, they're throwing rocks and bricks and shit, I'm like, I know what you're talking about because it's the same thing I suspect that this motherfucker was talking about. This article was what I pulled up when we looked at it. From 2020. But if I read it, you would think it's like it's just as relevant today, 5 years later. George Soros conspiracy theory surges protests sweep U.S. This could literally have referred to the ICE protests. They say he hires protesters and rents buses to transport them. Some say he has people stash piles of bricks to be hurled into glass storefronts or at police. So what the fuck do you think Trump is referring to when he tweets out on Truth Social or whatever the fuck you would call a post on there? Yeah, law enforcement officers need to be able to protect themselves from rocks and bricks that are being thrown at them. Or any other form of assault. Again, things that are already illegal to do. It's already illegal to throw a rock at somebody. It's already illegal to throw a brick at somebody. It's going to be extra illegal to do it to a fucking cop. Slime balls? To stop their car and arrest these slime balls using whatever means is necessary to do so. The president appeared to be referring to an incident on Thursday when federal agents clashed with protesters during immigration raids on 2 farms in California's Ventura County north of Los Angeles. At Glasshouse Farms' property in Camarillo, masked federal agents appeared to use crowd control measures, including tear gas, to curb a protest, which was responded to by thrown bricks. Okay, for once, a brick was actually thrown. A brick was finally thrown, you guys. In 2025, we have the first brick apparently thrown. If we're taking the words of the cops, a brick was thrown. Naturally, this justifies the, leader of the free world going on Truth Social and saying that these slime balls need to be arrested and stopped by any means necessary. So agents conducted another raid at the Glasshouse Farm site, 35 miles up the coast, about 200 suspected undocumented immigrants. And by suspected undocumented immigrants, again, the basis by which they are suspected to be undocumented immigrants is that you look poor, you look brown, you speak Spanish, you're probably not here legally. Were arrested in both raids, according to federal immigration authorities, and a farm worker was fatally injured after falling from a roof. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin later told Fox News Digital that the injured man was not in and has not been in CBP or ICE custody, although he was not being pursued. He was not being pursued by law enforcement. Oh, great. So just a civilian that had nothing to do with any of this just died because of the chaos that you caused. Awesome. The cops, famous for never making shit up ever. Famous for never lying, never making shit up, and certainly would never happen in the Trump administration, right? I'm sure there's actually a lower propensity for these fucking people, the Gestapo, to lie right now, right? So this individual climbed up to the roof of a greenhouse and fell 30 feet. CBP immediately called a medevac to the scene to get him care as quickly as possible, and then, he still died. California's Governor Gavin Newsom said the admin's actions were, quote, inhumane, and its tactics evoke chaos, fear, and terror within our communities at every turn. Newsom's office later posted in response to a tweet from Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor. This fascist cuck in D.C. Wait, did he really post this? Did he really call him a cuck? He did. I feel like a lib for actually laughing at this. Holy shit. This fascist cuck in D.C. continues his assault on democracy and the Constitution and his attempt to replace the sovereignty of the people with autocracy. They were instantly like, we have nothing to do with that guy. So they're just not going to comment on the cuck thing? Why did he call him that? Oh, wait, Stephen Miller's wife has cheated on him, right? I love how there's no pushback from The Guardian. It doesn't warrant it. We know what he's referring to. Stephen Miller's wife fucking hates him and cheated on him, I'm sure. This is so weird, though. The twin raids in California come despite guidance from Tatum King, a senior official with ICE, to regional department leaders at Homeland Security investigations, directing them to stop workplace immigration enforcement actions unless related to criminal investigations, a thing that they're definitely not going to comply with. Effective today, please hold on all worksite enforcement investigations / operations on agriculture, including aquaculture and meatpacking plants, restaurants, and operating hotels, King wrote in the guidance last month. But the raids are continuing, along with clashes between protesters and federal agents. Last week, 10 people were arrested on attempted murder charges in connection with the shooting outside the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas. A police officer was shot in the neck during what U.S. prosecutors say was, quote, a planned ambush by assailants dressed in black military-style clothing. An 11th suspect, Daniel Rolando Sanchez Estrada, is the husband of one of the charged attackers and was arrested on charges of conspiracy to tamper with evidence while attempting to execute a search warrant, according to ICE's account on X. This is so weird. Like, not official ICE data, but like they're like tweeting a picture of this guy. He allegedly had insurrectionist propaganda, organizing for attack, insurrectionary anarchy. Cool. Could this guy get any cooler? The FBI said on Friday it is searching for a 12th person involved in the July 4th ambush, naming the suspect as Benjamin Hanil Song, a former Marine Corps reservist. Police say he should be considered armed and dangerous. Okay. 3 days later, on July 7th, a man with a rifle and tactical gear was shot dead by police after he opened fire at a Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas, near the U.S.-Mexico border. Guarantee you, Border Patrol facilities, basically like fucking internment camp or concentration camp-esque, like children in cages type facility. 2 officers and a Border Patrol employee were injured in the attack, including the one who was shot in the knee, according to a statement by the Department of Homeland Security. Police identified the suspect as 27-year-old Ryan Luis Mosqueda. In a statement, Trump said he had watched the California raids in disbelief as thugs were violently throwing rocks and bricks. Correction, Sweaty, it was just a single brick. Thank you. At ICE officers while they were moving down a roadway in their car and or official vehicle. Tremendous damage was done to these brand new vehicles. A man died and he didn't say an innocent man died and he didn't say a single fucking word about it. A rock is thrown, allegedly. A brick is thrown, allegedly. And there was damage to like an Escalade. That is a remark is made about that. I know for a fact that these officers are having a hard time with allowing this to happen in that it shows such total disrespect for law and order. Is it that, or does it just show that they're incompetent as shit? It doesn't matter how many fucking times you tell them what the Fourth Amendment is, how much fucking military gear that they have. They can't, for whatever reason, be able to control protests without using tear gas. They can't, like, arrest people without people getting shot. What is the point? What is the point of all this money that goes to this fucking agency if you have all, like, Beavis and Butthead running it on the ground level? These are idiots. How can you not restrain these people? Not that I want them to, but I don't understand, like, this level of incompetency is just, like, unheard of to me. It's insane how bad they are at this. The annual budget for ICE will increase about $8 billion to roughly $28 billion under Trump's spending bill signed into law earlier this month, with plans to hire 10,000 new agents and become the highest funded law enforcement agency. Surely throwing more money at this problem is definitely going to improve it, right? Fucking, okay. Ugh. Disturbing. And on this, Maxwell Frost went into what they're calling Alligator Alcatraz. These are like these detention facilities in Florida. Inside Alligator Alcatraz, lawmakers compare detention camps to internment camps. Probably wouldn't be a stretch to say that they're a concentration camp, but we're not going to use that term, I guess.
Welcome back to the Weekend Primetime. Tonight, we are getting a first-hand account of the conditions inside the controversial immigration detention center in the Florida Everglades. That's been dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Today, a group of Democratic lawmakers were given what they called a sanitized tour of the facility, which they compared to an, quote, internment camp. It comes as major questions are being raised about the safety and the conditions inside, including a report in the Associated Press that there are worms in the food and wastewater on the floor. Congress members Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Maxwell Frost were 2 of the lawmakers who were able to go inside. Here's what they had to say after.
And I guess not allowed to film for some reason.
Conditions that we saw inside this internment camp, which it is nothing less than that description, were really appalling.
We saw humans being held in cages. You heard it from Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. 32 people per cage, 3 toilets in each cage for these 32 people, and their drinking water comes from the toilet.
And joining us now is...
Why call it an internment camp? At this point, just call it a fucking concentration camp.
Florida Congress...
Why, these people need to think like Republicans. You need to be maximally inflammatory. This is the time to fucking do it. And in this case, you're not even exaggerating or being hyperbolic. If you're going in there and you're seeing with your own eyes, you have all of these people concentrated in fucking cages. They're not given access to water or food that's clean. and they don't have access to basic like toilets and like other like restroom facilities. What would you call that?
Maxwell Frost, one of the lawmakers.
Like, I thought it was appropriate to say this even back when they were doing the child separation policy.
Just heard from there. Congressman Frost, thank you for joining us this evening. First, I want you to paint a picture for us of what it was like inside this facility, the sights, the sounds, the smells. But also, given that Democrats are describing this as a sanitized tour, what do you think happened in the days, the hours leading up to the moment at which you got access to the site?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. I mean, this was a very heartbreaking and emotionally draining day, seeing other humans being held in cages. 32 people per cage, only 3 toilets per cage. When they opened that door, and they didn't let us fully in, but they let us just stand at the door. I heard people yelling for help. In the background, I heard one gentleman yell, "I'm a U.S. citizen." I heard people begging for us to contact their family. Someone said, "Please get my mom, tell her I'm okay." And then at the end, while we were walking out, they all started chanting, libertad, freedom, freedom. And when I was looking at those cages, I saw myself.
What do you think the ethnicity of the majority of the people that were randomly detained without due process and placed in this concentration camp was? Especially if they're speaking Spanish. I wonder.
I saw people my age, people who looked exactly like me. And so I'm ashamed as a Floridian, and every Floridian should be ashamed that our taxpayer dollars are being used to create this internment camp for immigrants. What were the sites? What were the fields where it was incredibly hot? I mean, when we walked into that and we saw the gentlemen in the cages, they were sweating. You could tell there was the smell in the air of so many people being pushed together like that. There were so many mosquitoes and bugs, and people talk a lot about the gators here, but sometimes the deadliest thing you can encounter in Florida is actually a mosquito carrying some sort of sickness or something like that, or bacteria that can get to you. Tons of mosquitoes. Even talking to the staff, I spoke with a van driver who was driving us around. He said, "I get bit up every day."
I wouldn't be surprised if Trump tried to convince his base to support all this by calling them freedom camps. I mean, so in the first administration, Donald Trump's approval rating dropped significantly and never recovered after the child separation policy. The same thing is happening again because the mass deportation policy is really, really unpopular, which all the polling before 2024 was even showing that already. When you polled Americans, there was like 70% support, apparently, as high as that for this program. But the thing that they would leave out is when you would actually explain to those same people that had just said they're in support of this program, when you actually explain to them how you had to like logistically do this and what it was going to look like, that same amount of people opposed it. So now you're seeing that come to fruition because the same people that voted for it are like, oh, I didn't mean mass deportations like that. I just wanted you to put all the groceries in one bag and I didn't want it to be heavy. I didn't want you to actually deport like my neighbor or my coworker or like my friend's husband. That's not what I meant.
And that's one of the staff members. These conditions are.
But I'll pull up what like an article that I saw yesterday about how all of a sudden support for immigrant rights has increased.
Horrible.
Funny that.
This place needs to be shut down. It's nothing.
That issue that Democrats said like we needed to meet voters where they were at and could never recover. And it was not like you couldn't oppose the Republicans on this, but they tried to like collaborate on them with that fucking stupid bipartisan border bill.
Than a stunt, but it's a stunt.
Like, isn't it crazy how just a few months later, all of a sudden there's been this radical shift in public opinion on this?
Using real humans, real people. And I'm just very ashamed and I'm disgusted sitting here right now, having come from that facility.
But to be clear, because you've described it as this sanitized.
I guess I won't vote Democrat then. Stop.
Tour. What I mean. Are you saying that you think the officials there did something? Like, you're describing what already sounds like inhumane conditions. But are you suggesting this must have been better than what is regularly going on at this site?
Exactly. What we saw was abhorrent. What we saw are horrible conditions. And this was the sanitized version. This is the version where they had 4 to 5 days to clean up, to get things ready. We have been communicating through their lawyers. We've heard stories of people there at the facility. In fact, I pulled up to this facility, and I want to show you. I pulled up to this facility with a binder full of questions, but also with pictures, with testimonies from my constituents that are being held in there. And something we heard last night from some folks is magically, they finally got a shower. Magically, the food got a little better. So this is them sanitizing things in preparation for this tour. We actually planned to go this morning about a week ago unannounced. And somehow that information got to the governor's office and they decided to invite us to come. But what they have to realize is we don't need their permission. It is in the—
So this is the planned trip. So they knew about this, and the conditions that he saw was what it looked like after they cleaned it up.
law. Members of Congress can enter these facilities at any time, and I will be back at a time of my choosing, at a date of my choosing, to see things how they really are. But what you said is important. This was the sanitized version, and it was still 32 people in a cage, not getting enough food, flies and bugs in the air. Literally, and I mentioned this before, you have 3 toilets, and connected to the toilet on the top.
Definitely need better Democrats. Maxwell Frost is one of those better Democrats. I think he's the youngest congressional representative in Congress, and probably he might even be younger than me. Maxwell Frost. He is... Oh, no, he's not. Close. He's 28. Let's see. Go away. I put, like, youngest? Yeah, Frost is the youngest member and the first Gen Z member of the United States Congress.
Is a spigot, and that's how they drink their water.
You've
this
talked
was
about
the sanitized version. Imagine what's going on a day-to-day basis when we're not there.
You've talked, Congressman, about the need to shut this down. I'm wondering how you see that happening. What are your Republican colleagues? Do any of them have any of them expressed the same concerns that you have about the humanitarian conditions there? And what, if anything, can be done to try and shut this down?
Well, number one, us exercising our congressional oversight is really important. Us going there today was important, but we need to come back and announce, and we will come back. I'm also going to be advocating on behalf of my constituents there, and hopefully we'll meet with them in person next time we're at the facility. I'm going to be speaking with more Democrats on the Oversight Committee to see about possibly doing a hearing so we can uplift this even more. There's a lawsuit right now that...
the thing for them to focus on if they want to get more voters active and like activated in protest, contacting their representatives, is they really need to hammer in the point that, like, there are Americans being detained here without due process in these disgusting conditions. Because if you try to focus too much on the immigrants or whatever, people are going to be like, they're not really citizens. They're just residents. They need to leave. They need to fucking self-deport or whatever.
Many organizations are engaged in. They're tackling this from the environmental aspect of things. The state has said that the federal government has said that they have nothing to do with the facility. But while we were in
there... Why don't you just implement ranked choice voting so you have more options? Why don't I just do the thing? The reason why I don't just do the thing is because there has to be popular will for the thing to happen. There is ranked choice voting that's occurring in different areas of the country, like the New York mayoral primary, the Democratic primary, and Republican primary, where they use ranked choice voting. But it has to be instituted at like municipal levels and then state levels first before it's going to be instituted federally. And there are pushes for that, but it's slow.
I have firsthand accounts and quotes right here, told by the people leading this facility, that the federal government and ICE are calling the shots and telling them where to place things and telling them how to do everything. And so we're going to work up a brief. We're going to work up all this information in a way that people can digest and understand. And we hope it'll help with litigation. It'll help with continued oversight work. And we also know that this, Everglades internment camp is indicative of a larger thing going on right now, where we have ICE that's just been given $150 billion, more money than the United States Marine Corps, to export the terror of our communities across the entire country. So we're going to continue to fight against that. But I'll tell you, us exercising our ability to conduct oversight.
Come on, Maxwell. Are you really surprised? You think that mass deportation programs just grow on trees?
And shine a light on this, I think, is one of the
And
most...
that's just the start. That is just the floor for the price of this stupid fucking program. Yeah, deportations to add almost $1 trillion in costs to the big beautiful bill, which passed. This is an old article. It's from June 6, 2025, from the Cato Institute. The Cato Institute is a fucking libertarian think tank. It ain't no bleeding heart liberal. We love Latinx POC in our country. Diversity is our strength. This is from a rigorously, it's good for the American economy, financial perspective. That's how fucking expensive this is going to be. Over how many years? Give me a second. Let's just read this part. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, which is a nonpartisan office, estimates the bill will direct an astounding $168 billion of the budget to immigration and border law enforcement, and there's even more for agencies that indirectly support immigration law enforcement. So what was the final thing?
Of $150 billion, more money than the United States Marine Corps.
Okay, $150 billion. So it ended up being $150 billion instead of 168, I guess. However, the CBO's cost estimate is deficient in 3 ways. First, CBO assumes that this increase is temporary, and second, it will happen gradually over the next 10 years, rather than in an immediate reckless spending spree. Most importantly, it neglects the more significant cost of removing immigrants who would have paid more in taxes than they received in benefits. Properly considered, the actual cost of H.R. 1's immigration enforcement spending is nearly $1 trillion more than the CBO estimates. When seen in the context of the overall costs of the bill, mass deportation would account for almost a quarter of the bill's total price tag. It's because they're expanding to end up they want more training, they want more cops and stuff like that. But then you have to factor in that you are disrupting some of the most, the United States is a fucking service economy for the most part. It's the only thing we export other than we have services, we have weapons, and we have cultural exports. That's it. And these people, the immigrants and temporary residents, visa holders, green card holders, etc., they're the ones that are staffed in these fucking jobs that support the economy. So yeah, losing them is going to cause a huge fucking penalty to the American economy. And Trump even recognizes this already because he's getting pushback from farmers and people within the hospitality agencies saying okay, but you can't deport Jose because he does the grounds here for really cheap. So that is just the start of how much this fucking program is going to cost. We're going to make all the money back with the Trump Gold Card, $5 million each. Invest now. I forgot about that. The life hack is that if you invest now in the Trump Gold Card, it's going to pay dividends back. That or the Trump dinar when he does the revaluation.
To export the terror of our communities across the entire country. So we're going to continue to fight against that. But I'll tell you, us exercising our ability to conduct oversight and shine a light on this, I think is one of the most important things members of Congress can do right now.
Congressman Frost, you touched on something that is my very basic question here, which is who is in charge? I spoke with an attorney for a man who is in Alligator Alcatraz yesterday, and she said that her client actually has authorization to be here in the United States. He's an immigrant, but he has authorization to be here. And she has struggled to get him out because when she talks to ICE, ICE says, we're not in charge. The state has him. When she talks to the state says, we're not in charge. ICE has him.
Isn't this familiar? We're looking at this fucking, hold on. Is it it was the Epstein one that I took a look at yesterday, 2 days ago, whatever it was. The same thing was happening when they were passing around who gets what. Hold on. Yeah, look, what they were asking questions. They had questions. Wired had questions about the altered footage that was supposedly raw and released by the United States government, but when they looked into it, it had actually been manipulated in some way using Adobe Premiere Pro, which this article says could be as benign as stitching together different clips, but it could also mean that they have edited the footage. There's just no way to know. While there may be uncontroversial explanations for the metadata artifacts, such as stitching together multiple days of footage during compilations, or the routine export of surveillance footage to an MP4 format, the FBI did not respond to specific questions about the file's processing, instead referring Wired to the DOJ. The DOJ, in turn, referred inquiries back to the FBI and the Bureau of Prisons. The BOP did not respond to a request for comment. So it's just this game of hot potato trying to figure out who the fuck do you even talk to get a fucking comment around here in this country when you're trying to understand the decisions behind the Trump administration. Because look,
and she has station to be here in the United States.
Tell me what she describes is not going to just outline exactly what we just heard in that article from yesterday.
But he has authorization to be here. And she has struggled to get him out because when she talks to ICE, ICE says, we're not in charge. The state has him. When she talks to the state says, we're not in charge. ICE has him, which puts him in this basically Kafka-esque limbo where she doesn't even know.
And that's intentional. That's a feature, not a bug. The BOP, yeah, the Bureau of Prisons. The BOP.
Which court?
Not the BOP house. It's just the other BOP house.
To approach to try to get him out on bond. So who is actually running this facility?
We got some answers on this because this whole hot potato situation, they're doing it to avoid legal liability.
See, I'm not the only one thinking this.
And that's why the litigation is so important, because at the end of this, we'll have a defined answer. But this is what I was told by Kevin Guthrie, who is the director of the Florida Department of Emergency Management, which they're managing this whole thing. The state is handling the logistics. They have paid for the creation of this internment camp, but the detainees there are still detained by ICE. So it is a federal detention facility operated by the state government. And this is something that they tried to get around. And I actually brought it up multiple times for to a point of clarification, and they continued to clarify it for me. But there's something else I want to bring up that I think is really important. When we were driving around this facility, I didn't even see a lot of law enforcement officers. You know what I saw? Private security companies everywhere. Like, the whole thing is run by private companies. I saw a few folks with the National Guard outside.
I really hope that his shock for this is performative and like a thing that he already knew to be the case.
I saw a few folks from the State Guard around.
This is not even an open secret. This is something that's like well documented, and it doesn't just go like pertain to like detention facilities. It also goes back to private prisons.
Around, but most of what I saw were people who were essentially rent-a-cops, like no different than if you would go to a concert or go to a ball game and you see private security there. Those are the people who are essentially running.
He's probably shocked. He's young. Oh, don't say that. I hope he knows
most of the operation and interacting with the immigrants and detainees on a daily basis. Think about that. Usually you have federal officers who have gone through some extensive training in this field, and right now it's being run by private security officers.
Would ICE agents with more extensive training really be doing a better or like a significantly better job? They'd probably be doing fucking worse. I mean, that doesn't release the Trump administration or the state governments from, staffing it with the proper personnel. But I'll be honest, in this like weird way, I wouldn't be surprised if like, fucking Paul Blart or whoever the hell they have like standing guard there doesn't give a shit or get paid enough to crack down in the way that they're supposed to.
Incredible.
Congressman Maxwell Frost, thank you so much for joining us and sharing even that sanitized tour testimony with us.
Honestly, scared for the next 3+ years for the U.S. ICE are just full steaming ahead, and I'm worried the resistance isn't there. Well, hold on. There's some good signs. So this was a couple days ago now. When was this? July 11th. Yeah, 2 days ago. Support for immigration rebounds as Trump cracks down on it, poll finds. In a marked reversal from a year ago, more Americans now have positive views about immigration, and a record high believes it's good for the nation. 6 months into the Trump administration's efforts to carry out the largest mass deportation effort in the U.S. history, a new poll shows that the American public is once again warming to immigration. Don't you just love the median voter, man? A sustained increase in migrants crossing the southern border started in 2021 had stirred anxiety and anger across the United States. Gee, wonder why. Racial panic in this country? And public support for immigration plunged as Donald J. Trump made the issue the centerpiece of his campaign to return to the White House. But in the past year, Americans have grown less negative about the issue, with the share of those wanting to see immigration decrease now totaling 30% compared to 55% in 2024, according to the new survey conducted by Gallup, a polling organization. A record high of adults in the United States, or 79%, now believes immigration is a good thing for the country. The results are in line with other recent surveys that suggest attitudes on immigration may be shifting as Mr. Trump has intensified efforts to detain and deport people. Illegal crossings I really wish that they would further clarify that the people that they're detaining and deporting, one, they're doing it to this extent because they have quotas. Two, the vast majority of the people that they're detaining are not even anywhere, like they've done nothing. 65% of people taken by ICE had no convictions. 93% no violent convictions. To the extent that some of them had convictions, it was like traffic stops. Property violence, like traffic. 14,000 fucking people just because of traffic violations. This was on June 20th of this year. Illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border, which began dropping last year under President Biden, are now at their lowest level in decades. And Trump tries to take credit for this, acting like this draconian policy is like the only reason why, when like it's multiple factors. I mean, that is certainly one of them, but there's such things as push and pull factors that's going to obviously impact it. But this was already a trend that had been happening under Biden. So you would have seen a decrease no matter who the hell this head of state was. Major cities like New York are no longer struggling to care for a large number of migrants. At the same time, people in many communities, large and small, urban and rural, are seeing immigrant relatives, friends, and neighbors taken away by federal agents. Still, immigration remains an area where Mr. Trump receives some of his strongest approval ratings. Gallup pollsters said Mr. Trump's, quote, swift and visible response has allayed concern among some Republicans, which in turn shifted overall American sentiment on immigration back to where it was before migration levels climbed to record heights. Sentiment on immigration turning quite positive does add a lot of optimism, to be fair. Yeah. I'm hoping that when the midterms come up, a lot of these people, a lot of Democrats, have the confidence to be outspoken about being advocates for immigration rights, calling for comprehensive reform, calling for a path to legal citizenship, and saying that, like, these programs are expensive, they're inhumane, they're unconstitutional, they're not popular, there's absolutely no need or reason to institute them. And if we actually want to seriously address immigration, you just need to reform the processes because there's no stopping people from moving around. The new Gallup poll found more Americans disapprove rather than approve of President Trump's handling of the issue, which has been the case since Mr. Trump took office. Support for stricter border enforcement measures is down over the last year, though a majority of Americans still support stricter measures, while support for creating pathways to citizenship for unauthorized immigrants remains high. The Gallup poll, conducted from June 2nd to 26th and released Friday, found that support for the president's handling of immigration has fallen, with 35% approving, down from 46% in February. So just over a few months, you've gotten 11% shift. Support was particularly low with Hispanic adults, 21% of whom approved of Mr. Trump's approach on the issue, 14 percentage points below the national number. The numbers most likely reflect that demographic group's low support for some of his administration's marquee immigration policies, Ms. Saad said, such as deporting all immigrants in the country illegally and increasing the number of immigration agents. See, there is a little bit of a stereotype that goes on where people assume that, like, it's equally dumb to assume that if you're Hispanic or Latino or like in some way have some sort of like Latin background that you're going to be pro-immigration. That is really, really ignorant. But it's also simultaneously really ignorant to think that it's obviously not going to be unpopular depending on what type of Hispanic person that you're talking to. I really wish, like, maybe it goes into it, like, no, they don't. This links to a different article. I really wish they would break it down by, like, Hispanic adults. That could mean Dominicans. That could mean Cubans. That could mean Puerto Ricans. That could mean, like, so many different groups. And I wonder who they're talking about. Because I'm sure it breaks down from there, like, between age and partisanship. Because there are a lot of Hispanic adults that have survivorship bias, even when they have, like, undocumented people in their family or people that went through the hell that is like the legal immigration process in this country, and they adopt the attitude of, like, well, I had to do it the right way, so ain't nobody gonna cut, like, you know, let's pull the ladder out from behind me. Nobody is going to get it after I've gotten it. The numbers most likely reflect that demographics group's low support for some of his administrations. Hold on, we saw that. Still, a plurality of Hispanic adults, 39%, said they want immigration levels to decrease, while only 30% of the general public said the same. See, this totally makes sense. They don't like the way that he goes about the deportations, but they still want less immigration. Glad to see that you managed to get stream started early today. Yeah. Thanks and early, you guys. It's all of them Cubans, Puerto Ricans. The most pro-Trump people are getting cooked by their policies that they voted for. I wouldn't be surprised if you actually broke down the most common, like, ethnicity that they have attempted to deport. If it's, like, actually primarily Mexicans, I would be shocked if they're really trying to deport, like, Cubans and Puerto Ricans. Is Trump trying to, because they know that those people vote for them, to deport Cubans and Puerto Ricans? It's not personal. Trump's deportation efforts find support among South Florida Latinos. In Hialeah, Florida, a city that's 95% Hispanic, only 3 residents showed up at a recent city council meeting to speak against the partnership with the federal government to enforce immigration laws. The police departments in Hialeah, while 3 out of 4 people were born ahead, and Coral Gables, with the majority of Hispanics mostly of Cuban descent, have entered into agreements with ICE with very little visible pushback. President Trump's doubling of immigration arrests and ramping of deportations could have a disproportionate impact on South Florida, home to some of the nation's largest communities of Cubans, Venezuelans, and other Latin Americans. But reaction here to Trump's crackdown has been far more muted than during his first term, reflecting both the rightward shift of the Latino voters and a belief that among some that restricted border measures are necessary. I understand that some people feel a little bit betrayed because most of us voted him in, said Frank Ayalon, a 41-year-old sales representative from Miami. I feel like a lot of these people are taking it very personal, and it's not personal. It's just that you've got to understand that this has been an open border for many years. Dude, how many levels of ideology are you operating on when this is your understanding of the policy that's taking place that you fucking voted for? So he echoed Trump's attack on former President Joe Biden, whose administration saw record high illegal border crossings before falling at the end of his term. Isn't this number of like record high border crossings also includes people that were turned away, you know? When is Trump deporting his immigrant wife? Any day now. Having once been critical of Trump's 2020 election lies, this voter now says he thought the president has had the most action-packed beginning of a term he's ever seen. It's just like a heckin' Marvel movie, you guys. So much fucking action going on. I love how there's like a statute of limitations on the 2020 election lies for this guy. Apparently that can just be forgiven after 4 years. So Trump in 2024 not only won Miami-Dade County, but the central Florida counties of Seminole and Osceola, where many Venezuelans have immigrated and made inroads in heavily Puerto Rican areas of Pennsylvania. He also flipped several South Texas border counties that were Democratic bastions for decades. What initially catapulted Trump's popularity in South Florida was his stance on the socialist governments that many exiles and their families fled, along with his focus on boosting growth and reducing prices. But at a rally in Miami days before announcing his third White House bid in November 2022, Trump said that, contrary to the belief of some, Hispanics liked his vows to crack down on illegal immigration. When I talked about the border, you know who the biggest fans were? They were the Hispanics, Latinos, Trump said. They knew more about the border than anybody. They knew more about it. Everybody said, oh, he's going to hurt himself with Hispanics. Actually, it turned out to be the exact opposite. Not the exact opposite. Again, it's like highly specific. Will Democrats rise to the occasion, though, of not treating this group like a fucking monolith? Because all of these people, the only way you can make sense of these numbers is if you break it down by ethnicity. That is how Hispanic people identify. They don't like just default to calling themselves, I'm Latino, I'm Hispanic. Cuban exiles are split. What? Because you're scared that you're going to go away? Whatever. So let's see. The results mark a dramatic reversal in trends that began in 2021 when immigration apprehensions hit levels not seen in 20 years and more than 1.5 million people crossed the southern border for the first time. In recent years, the majority of Americans had come to see the situation at the border as a problem, and concern over immigration, both legal and illegal, had been rising. Last year was the first time since 2005 that a majority of Americans told Gallup they wanted to see immigration in the country decrease. Mr. Trump was voted into the White House for a second term after a campaign marked by nativist rallying cries against migrants and pledges. Is this the blood thing? The deep roots of 4 of Donald Trump's nativist remarks. Yeah, like talking about like a fucking invasion, occupied country. They're eating pets. Talking about criminality. Disease. People come in, they're very sick. They have highly contagious diseases. They're let into our country to infect them. The bad genes comment. Many of them murdered far more than one person. They're now living happily in the United States. You know, a murderer, I believe this. It's in their genes, and we've got a lot of bad genes in our country right now. This was October 7th, 2024. Hugh Hewitt show. And then food. They're eating the dogs. They're eating cats. And with many Americans ranking immigration as the most important issue in the election. Americans who can open their door and as far as the eye can see, nothing but a sea of white people. But we must make sure that there's not more fucking Syrians. We have to clamp down on a Guatemalan mother of 3 coming into this fucking country with nothing but like the clothes on her back. But that's really the reason why the country is failing, right? Since then, Mr. Trump and his allies have embarked on an immigration crackdown more sweeping than the one he undertook in his first term and harsher than any since World War II. In his first months, his administration has implemented a travel ban, rolled back temporary deportation protections for hundreds of thousands of people, and fast-track asylum cases without granting court hearings. His admin also sought to ramp up arrests and raids at homes, courthouses, and workplaces, suspend a wide array of student visas, invoke centuries-old wartime law to summarily deport people, and end constitutional right granting U.S. citizenship to all children born on U.S. soil. This is a thing that they've been talking about for like a decade, and it's finally happening. And he was like talking about like fucking Rosie O'Donnell being stripped of her citizenship. the bad genes comment, people just forgot about that. Well, the reason why they forgot about it is because Democrats were too busy talking about how Republicans failed to sign the bipartisan border bill instead of talking about the fact that he was saying this shit about people that were not already, like, about immigrants. The recent shift in attitude about immigration has been primarily driven by Republicans whose support for lowering immigration rates plummeted to 48% from 88% just 1 year ago. Even, like, Republicans are, like, not on board with this. Exchange immigrants for the word Jew and you've got Nazi language. It's unfortunate, but it really does have to be spelled out that way to voters, and they should have done that, absolutely. Although a plurality still want immigration to decrease, an increasing share express a desire to keep immigration at current levels. In turn, a 64% majority of Republicans now say immigration is a good thing for the country, up from 39% last year. But the poll, which surveyed 1,400 U.S. adults, is the latest public opinion poll to show a drop in Mr. Trump's approval ratings on immigration and a mixed to negative response in his hardline policies. Because again, he didn't actually campaign on this. I'm not handing it to Trump or anything like that, but the mass deportation program was pitched to Americans and voters as we're going to be going after criminals, we're going to be going after murderers, people that are not supposed to be here and contribute to, like, the disarray of society, right? Allegedly. Even though that's even that claim is not true, that's a complete fabrication, but that aside, that's what people thought they were voting for. It wasn't though. Stephen Miller gets in and he's saying, no, why are you going after the illegals? You should be going after everybody. So with that, obviously they're bound to be getting people that aren't criminals. If you have these quotas, if you need to get like 3,000 people a day, which the New York Post is reporting. Let's go back to that Cato article. Quota. The White House has ordered ICE to meet an unreasonable quota of 3,000 arrests per day, a target they were nowhere near achieving as of June 14th. Agents are complaining about how the quota is undermining public safety in interviews with conservative outlets like the New York Post and Washington Examiner. The White House is focused on quantity over quality, one agent told the New York Post. The agents told the Post that ICE's quota was forcing them to leave some dangerous criminal illegal migrants on the streets. ICE shifted away from fugitive operations to focus on asylum seekers at courthouses, immigrants who regularly check in with ICE, and other non-threats. So literally the most compliant immigrants are the ones that they're getting their hands on and detaining without any due process because they have these ridiculous quotas that they can't meet. Even with all of the bloated budget of this particular, they still can't do it. And so, of course, they actually have to go after the ones that are actually complying with the law. Aging Millennial, thank you for the 100 bits. Joe Rogan feels strict. Yeah, he talked about that. Or, like, he pays lip service to it for 2 seconds of, like, hey, people, this isn't what we wanted. But will he actually stop supporting Trump? No. A New York Times/Siena College poll in April found that Mr. Trump's highest approval ratings was on immigration, though slightly more Americans disapproved than approved of his handling on the issue. 53% believed he'd gone too far in enforcement. Is this the same one that they're talking about? This was April 2025, but yeah. I mean, May 17th, Donald Trump's approval rating now underwater on nearly every issue. On May 17th, the only one that he wasn't underwater with was border security. But every other one, Americans were saying that they don't like how he handles domestic or international policy. Trump's... Yeah, 53% believed he went too far. A Pew study in June found Americans evenly split over his administration's use of state and local law enforcement officers in its deportation dragnet and over its efforts to offer money and travel funds to undocumented immigrants who leave voluntarily. But a majority of the public disapproved of ending temporary protected status programs, suspending most asylum applications, and increasing ICE raids on job sites where immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally may be working. Stop fighting in YouTube chat. Sophie and Fire Channel, cut it out. Both of you guys are baiting each other. And so, what was the other thing that I saw? And then this fucking thing. I'm like going through my YouTube subscriptions yesterday to see what to cover. FEMA didn't answer thousands of calls from flood survivors, documents show. 2 days after deadly Texas floods, the agency struggled to answer calls from survivors because of call center contracts that weren't extended. Curious. Just 2 days after catastrophic floods roared through central Texas, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, aka FEMA, did not answer nearly 2/3 of calls to its disaster assistance line, according to documents reviewed by the New York Times. Remember, this is an agency that is necessary, but also one that Trump was saying needs to be fucking abolished, which he's quietly backing off of now. The lack of responsiveness happened because the agency had fired hundreds of contractors at call centers, according to a person briefed on the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity in order to discuss internal matters. The agency laid off the contractors on I don't even know, will they mention Doge? Will they mention Doge? Their contracts expired and were not extended, according to the documents and the person briefed on the matter. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, who has instituted a new requirement that she personally approves every expense over $100,000, did not renew the contracts over Thursday. Okay, actually, this isn't Doge. This is Ice Barbie's fault. 5 days after the contracts expired, FEMA is part of the Department of Homeland Security. The details on the unanswered calls on July 6th, which have not been previously reported, come as FEMA faces intense scrutiny over its response to the floods in Texas that have killed more than 120 people. 120 people in Texas. And this isn't the only shit that they've mishandled. Does anybody fucking remember the ice storms? I was a Texas resident when that happened. People died when that happened as well. There were millions of people that were suffering from power outages in the freezing fucking cold because of this agency called ERCOT. Energy is privately managed in Texas. The agency, which President Trump has called for eliminating, has been slow to activate certain teams that coordinate response and search and rescue efforts. Asked for comment, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security, who declined to be identified, wrote in an email, "Why can't they just do that? You should just fucking identify them." When a natural disaster strikes, phone calls surge and wait times can subsequently increase. Despite this expected influx, FEMA's disaster call center responded to every caller swiftly and efficiently, ensuring no one was left without assistance. Oh, so they just fucking lied. So you knew this thing was going to happen. You didn't take the proper precautions to ensure that you had the manpower to support the increased amount of calls that you were going to get. And then you just lied. After floods, hurricanes, and other disasters, survivors can call FEMA to apply for different types of financial assistance. People who have lost their homes, for instance, can apply for a one-time payment of $750 that can cover their immediate needs, such as food or other supplies. Do you remember when, if I put Hurricane Helene, they were spreading lies about the fact that, you're only getting $750. This, hold on. If I put, lies, fact check, what do I have to put? This. So this is October 7, 2024. Misinformation has surged following Hurricane Helene. Here's a fact check. As recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene continue across the southeastern U.S., federal and state officials have warned that misinformation and conspiracy theories are hindering efforts to provide aid and accurate information to victims. The American Red Cross said misinfo was hurting relief efforts. And then FEMA said the false claims were demoralizing to aid workers. Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina told Face the Nation on Sunday that the claims distract from rescue work. Let's see what they say. Some of the most extreme conspiracy theories taking root online claim politicians manipulated the weather to target Republican areas and that the government is trying to seize land in North Carolina to mine lithium. Former President Donald Trump doubled down on misleading statements about federal disaster relief on Monday, falsely alleging that the Biden administration had allocated, quote, almost all of the FEMA money to illegal migrants. At a Pennsylvania rally on Saturday, Trump falsely suggested that storm victims were only being offered $750 in aid. Didn't this age just fucking fantastically? The same asshole, the same fucking charlatan, Donald Trump, calling out Biden for mishandling this, now has 120 dead Texans on his hand. His own appointee refused to renew the contracts that were necessary for FEMA to be able to actually operate and support victims of these natural disasters that are only going to increase because of climate change, a thing that he fucking denies. Yeah, not a peep. There's not going to be anything about this. I shouldn't say nothing, but the backlash in comparison to the backlash that the Biden administration faced surrounding relief efforts and for Hurricane Helene, it's going to be so disproportionate, man. It's obviously it's not going to. It's insane that this won't be bigger. Those damn Democrats controlling the weather. Yeah, usually Donald Trump controls the weather machines, but now I guess it's Democrats that are taking their turn. On July 5th, as floodwaters were starting to recede, FEMA received 3,027 calls from disaster survivors and answered 3,018, or roughly 99.7%, the documents show. Contractors with 4 call center companies answered the vast majority of the calls. That evening, however, Ms. Nome did not renew the contracts with the 4 companies, and hundreds of contractors were fired, according to the documents and the person briefed on the matter. The next day, July 6th, FEMA received, again, she does this at the most critical juncture. She fucks this up. This was not even something that was instituted that she had meant. Like, she didn't renew, but they couldn't have known that it was going to coincide with like a natural disaster or whatever. It would have been stupid and worthy of criticism anyway. But no, this was sheer incompetency. This was the fact that she is too busy taking pictures and doing a photo shoot for Instagram and like shining her new fucking car or like jet plane that she got. Didn't she get that? Christy, no, I'm like new plane. Kristi Noem eyes $50 million for new DHS jet. I was horrified last Friday when we received the last-minute addition to your spend plan for fiscal 25, a new $50 million Gulfstream pipe for Secretary Noem's personal travel coming from the Coast Guard budget. She already has a Gulfstream pipe, by the way. This is a new one, Underwood said during a Wednesday hearing. DHS has defended the request. The current CG-101 G550 is over 20 years old outside of the Gulfstream service life and well beyond operational usage hours for a corporate aircraft, Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, said in the statement. This is a matter of safety. We must have this $50 million jet, you see. Safety. Priorities. Much like the Coast Guard ship that are well beyond their service life and safe operational usage, Coast Guard's aircraft are too, she added. This administration is taking action to restore our nation's finest maritime armed service to a capable fighting force. Coast Guard Adam Kevin Lunday did not respond to a direct question from Underwood about whether he had been asked by higher-ups at the DHS to add a request for the plane, but he did defend the need for it. It's old and it's approaching obsolescence and the end of its service life. The avionics are increasingly obsolete, the communications are increasingly unreliable, and it's in need of recapitalization like much of the rest of the fleet. But this aircraft is necessary to provide the Secretary. Necessary! The party of fiscal responsibility. Again, we have money for $50 million for the jet. That's a priority. But renewing contracts for call centers for actual victims of natural disasters, that didn't seem to be an urgent matter for Trump's DHS on this day, or Kristi Noem. So the next day, they received 2,363 calls and answered 846, or roughly 35.8%, according to the documents. And on Monday, July 7th, the agency fielded 16,419 calls and answered 2,613, or around 15.9%, the documents show. This isn't even touching on how long the people that actually got to speak to somebody had to fucking wait to probably even talk to a real human being. They were probably on a fucking answer like a music loop for hours before they even spoke to somebody. Some FEMA officials grew frustrated by the lapse in contracts and that it was taking days for Ms. Noem to act, according to the person briefed on the matter and the documents. We still do not have a decision, waiver, or signature from the DHS secretary, a FEMA official wrote in a July 8th email to colleagues. Again, still, even after she had neglected to renew these contracts, they still did not, try to move quickly on it. Representatives for 2 of the companies with call center contracts, General Dynamics Information Technology and Maximus, redirected requests for comments to FEMA. This is the 3rd time tonight we're reading about redirections. Representatives for the other 2 firms, ITCON and TTEC, did not respond to requests for comment. See, I respect this more, just ignoring them. Responding to less than half of the inquiries is pretty horrific, says Jeffrey Schlegel-Milch, who directs the National Center for Disaster Preparedness at Columbia University. Put yourself in the shoes of a survivor. You've lost everything. You're trying to find out what's insured and what's not, and you're navigating multiple aid programs. He said, one of the most important services in disaster recovery is being able to call someone and walk through these processes and paperwork. Most people apply for FEMA aid by calling the disaster assistance line or visiting the agency's website, said Jeremy Edwards, a former FEMA spokesman under the Biden administration who is now at the Century Foundation, a liberal research organization. The Trump admin last month ended FEMA's longstanding practice of going door-to-door in disaster-battered areas to help survivors apply for aid. Yeah, who needs that? Who needs to, why would FEMA need to actually be on the ground and help directly assist people in the wake of a natural disaster that they weren't prepared for? Who even needs it? It's really a luxury when you think about it. It's not immediately clear how FEMA's responsiveness to calls after the Texas flood compared to its performance after past disasters. FEMA did not publicly release that data on a regular basis. The agency did publish similar data on October 29, 2024, days after Hurricane Helene barreled across the South and nearly 3 weeks after Hurricane Milton hit Florida. This was an insane time to be in Florida. It was fun to evacuate twice. That information showed that the agency did not answer nearly half of the 507,766 incoming calls over the course of a week, E&E News reported. Democratic lawmakers raised concern on Friday that Ms. Noem's insistence on approving expenses over $100,000 had also delayed FEMA's deployment of search and rescue teams to Texas. In a letter to Richard Davidson, FEMA's acting administrator, the Democrats on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform wrote that Ms. Noem did not authorize the deployment of those teams until July 7th, 3 days after the flooding began. Blood on their hands here. Off. Remind you, try removing the org for disease control before we got COVID-19. I mean, yeah, no one should be surprised. This is the same administration that in his first term or whatever had disassembled the pandemic preparedness team and was completely ill-equipped to handle the COVID-19 pandemic. Richardson, who has no background in emergency management, has not made any public appearances since his appointment on May 8th, breaking with a long tradition of FEMA leaders meeting with local officials in the wake of disasters. These people are just hiding out, man. Like, what are you doing? It's insane to me that there isn't more of a fuss about these people being appointed to these positions, being completely incompetent, and then the fact that they are dodging any accountability or even public appearances. The thing that they literally accuse, correctly, Biden of doing on the campaign trail. But when it comes, I would much rather have, what is worse, okay? A campaign like somebody on the campaign trail that doesn't do as many public appearances as you want, or somebody who's actually in the fucking administration who's not even willing to speak to the media, let alone be seen. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump traveled on Friday to Kerrville, Texas, a community along the Guadalupe River that has become a hub for search and recovery efforts. While Mr. Trump has talked of eliminating FEMA since he took office, White House officials recently expressed a desire to overhaul the agency. But he was backing off of this. Hold on. Trump wants to eliminate FEMA. I think that's the language he used. I'm not a fucking robot. Let me in. There we go. So this was 2 days ago. Trump administration moves away from abolishing FEMA. It should say temporarily moves away because it's obviously going to... How did you only start streaming an hour ago? Oh, because I only pressed start streaming an hour ago. That's how that works. In case you needed that explained. And to anybody else who was confused... For months, President Donald Trump and his Homeland Security Secretary have said the Federal Agency Management Agency could be eliminated. But as the president visited Texas to view the impact of last week's deadly floods, administration officials say abolishing the agency outright is not on the agenda. A senior White House official told the Washington Post that no official action is being taken to wind down FEMA, and that changes in the agency will probably amount to a rebranding that will emphasize state leaders' role in disaster response. What the fuck? A rebranding of FEMA? What does that even mean? The officials and others emphasized that Trump will make the ultimate decision, but said at this point, FEMA is not set to be abolished. No shit. It's rebrand, whatever that means. Oh snap, that's how that works. Apparently, I mean, I guess some people in YouTube chat are very, very confused. This needs to be explained. In describing an executive order on FEMA shortly after he took office, Trump said it would, quote, begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA's not good, Trump said in January, explaining that, quote, the FEMA thing has not been a very successful experiment. If I don't laugh, I'll cry. If I don't laugh, I'll cry. This is the dumb libertarian take where they want to destroy an agency simply to recreate it, but worse. They were doing this shit with TSA also. Hold on, Republicans abolish TSA. Like, here's what they mean. By rebranding, they mean privatizing. If they mean anything at all. Because I don't think that they want to touch this right now, given all the backlash that the agency is getting, or like that DHS is getting for mishandling assisting FEMA and like renewing those contracts. But where is it? Yeah, TSA isn't perfect, but it's way better than the alternatives. I mean, TSA doesn't really need to exist, but whatever. Oh wait, it's right there. Yeah, Republican Senators Mike Lee from Utah and Tommy Tuberville of Republicans from Alabama recently introduced the Abolish TSA Act of 2025, effectively calling for the privatization of airport security. That doesn't really sound like abolition to me. It's kind of just the privatization. So don't be surprised that when this comes back up about what the hell they're going to do with this agency, how this rebrand is going to go, it's going to go one of two ways. They're either they're going to say later, oh, we do need to eliminate it. And they're going to say the reason why they need to eliminate this agency is because of what happened during Texas, but they'll try to pretend like that was something that like had to do with the Biden administration, or that it needs to be eliminated because it's just so inherently incompetent that it failed all of these victims. He'll completely leave out that the reason why there was all of this systemic failure is because of his fucking appointments. And he's going to say that that's going to have to be the pretext for getting rid of it if he revisits this. Or again, just privatize it. Like, who they're going to privatize it to, I'm sure I don't know. Who are you, like, who else is going to be, who else is going to do this? Have a good stream, everyone. I don't want employees of a private company potentially patting you down. So what are you saying? You want the nanny state to do it? Abigail Jackson, a White House spokeswoman, said in a statement that the Review Council, quote, will recommend to the president how FEMA may be reformed in ways that best serve the national interest, including how America responds to and recovers from disasters, such as the federal role remains supplemental and appropriate for the scale of the disaster. Dude, this is the shit that no one was saying as well. That, like, it's not their job to do anything. That it's the state's jobs. It's like Texas, they're just straight up, blaming Abbott, which I'm here for. But not if it means that these people get to shirk responsibility, because they're actually at more fault than Abbott in this case.
Different issue, but one important of this state is obviously FEMA.
Yes.
I know there have been talks in the past about sort of doing away with the states. In the wake of Texas, as sort of hurricane season approaches, is there any updated conversation about what to do with FEMA, getting rid of it? I know there's a commission out there sort of studying the idea, but Texas is obviously a big one, and there have been some issues there. So I just wanted any update on the idea of getting rid of FEMA or where we are.
So I think some of what you saw for our response in Texas is going to be a lot of how President Trump envisions what FEMA would look like into the future. We did things in Texas for response very different than Joe Biden. In fact,
oh my God, I swear to God, I had not pre-watched this. You can't make this shit up. It's not even creative at this point.
We're immediately on the ground. As soon as the flooding hit, we deployed our Coast Guard. We had helicopters and airframe that were deployed, and swiftwater rescue teams out of Customs and Border Protection. Our BORTAC teams, which I like to call the Department of Homeland Security's ninjas. I mean, they can do almost anything in their specific...
I bet she loves saying the word ninjas. Yeah, they'll pretend the agency is beyond saving, so it needs to be dismantled while they have no replacement ready like they tried with the ACA. I mean, that's the Republican playbook. You say that the government is terrible, and then when you get in office, you intentionally dismantle said government in the administrative state so it functions poorly like you intended, and then you point to that disaster that you created and say, see, this is why the government can't do anything right. Guess we have to abolish it.
Trained for situations like that where the unprecedented is happening. And then I went immediately there on the ground and talked to the governor about getting a major disaster declaration signed. And within an hour or two of them requesting it, it was done, decided by the White House. And we pre-deployed dollars right to Texas so that they could make the best decisions responding to their people. Before, FEMA has never done that before, pre-deployed dollars to a state so that they could use that to save their people, so they could use that to go out and save lives. And that's what President Trump wants. He wants the states to be empowered. Listen, emergencies, and we're in the middle of hurricane season too, so it's important for Florida to know this too. Emergencies are locally executed. They are state managed. The state then manages it. The federal government comes in and supports. You don't ever want to sit back and wait for someone from the federal government to show up and to...
No one is asking the federal government to show up. They're only asking that you bother to sign your name on the fucking contracts that allow the states to even have money to send to these fucking people.
save you and rescue you out of your house necessarily, because that in
he wants the states to be empowered unless it means blocking the federal government from abducting immigrants. Yeah, no, not like that. States' rights, but not for that.
The past has not served people well under the Biden administration. With President Trump, we were there immediately, but we will always rely on those local officials and those state officials to help execute and to manage the response, because they're the ones who know their communities best. They know where people are the most vulnerable.
They're the ones who know their communities best. So apparently, yeah, the United States, the federal government and DHS, again, Department of Homeland Security, knows less about Texas than Texas. Or can't at least meet the same threshold of information or like level of information. Like when does a state ever know more than like a federal government with respect to stuff like that? And then on top of it, Trump's like screaming at reporters again. People paid for those programs already, 72 hours late. Yeah, that's the thing. She was like, we did it as soon as possible, completely leaving out the fact that it's like, you shouldn't have, you should have already signed it, bitch.
Here with CBS News Texas, several families we've heard from are obviously upset because they say that those warnings, those alerts didn't go out in time, and they also say that people could have been saved. What do you say to those families?
Well, I think everyone did an incredible job under the circumstances. This was, I guess Christie said, a 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 years. And I just have admiration for the job that everybody did. There was just admiration.
Fantastic job how like over 100 people in Texas died. Stunning.
Bad person would ask a question like that, to be honest with you. I don't know who you are, but only a very evil person would ask a question like that. I think this has been heroism. This has been incredible, really, the job you've all done. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, what could have happened here or there, you know. Maybe we could have done something differently. This was a thing that...
Yeah, it's easy to reflect and point out, like, hey, look at all these people that died. Don't you think that you could have done a little bit better than this? But apparently that's unproductive, nasty, rude, and not something that you should concern yourself with. You can always say things could go better. You know, mistakes were made, but, I mean, we do the best we can.
This has never happened before.
Yeah, it's never flooded, ever. Actually, this is the first flood that's ever occurred in United States history, even in Texas, apparently. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't have known any of this was going to happen, you guys, really. Shocking stuff. Gaslight King. He's the best, man. Let's see. There was more things that she said in this, like Christy Noem. These Democrat legislators before us have put us in jeopardy by showing up unannounced with violent protesters. I'm not going to allow it on my watch. This is like bitching that Maxwell Frost and Debbie Wasserman Schultz showed up to the Alligator Alcatraz thing.
Facility, so it's the governor's and the state's position that how they conduct visits. I will tell you, these Democrat legislators before have put us in jeopardy by just showing up unannounced with a bunch of violent protesters trying to break into ICE facilities. So at our federal facilities, we have a protocol in place for when you want to visit. I need to make sure I have enough officers there that I can keep everybody safe when they visit. You don't get to just show up with a bunch of protesters and break down a fence and break into a federal facility. That's never been allowed, and I'm not going to allow it on my watch. Florida at Alligator Alcatraz can make the same decisions if that is what they think is appropriate, but I'll leave that up to them, because as far as I'm concerned, the governor and his team have made wise decisions in this area before. Listen, it's state-run facility, so it's the...
Bizarre. Okay, I can't do any more of this, bitch. I'm gonna go crazy. But before I go insane, if you're watching on Twitch and you haven't followed me already, you should follow me so you can know when I go live, because apparently sometimes it's at like 5 in the morning and other times it's at 5 p.m. You never know. It's always a surprise here. You can also subscribe to me and get access to an ad-free experience or emotes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you should like the stream so it pushes it out to other people, and subscribe to me if you aren't already so you can catch all my previous, you can look at all my previous live pods if you missed those as well. And I've started timestamping them, so it's easier to go through them to see exactly which segment you missed. If you want to donate and support the stream, you can follow the pinned link in my Twitch chat or in my YouTube description. And I'm at Straighterade or Straighterade _ on everything. And now, you guys, America's Mayor, Eric Adams, went on PBD. And I need to see what this is about. Damn, I guess I got... Did I do it like a broken link or something? Here we go.
So today's the day.
So, Mamdani's socialist surge, Cuomo's downfall, and Trump's defense with New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Patrick Bet-David sits down with New York City Mayor Eric Adams for a raw and wide-ranging interview on Zohran Mamdani's socialist surge, Andrew Cuomo's political downfall, Trump's legal battles and public perception, and the urgent issues facing New York City. It's going to be anti-Semitism, and socialism. From rising crime and migrant pressures to the future of the Democratic Party and whether leadership still matters in American politics.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm supposed to take sweet victory. Know this life meant for me.
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
Handshake is better than anything I ever saw. It's right here.
You are one of 1% right there.
I don't think I've ever said this before.
Wow, that was the coolest intro I've ever seen, ever.
Mayor Adams, how you doing?
Good, flowing, flowing, swimming with the tides.
Brand, this is peak valuetainment.
I got on the elevator one day and the elder got on.
OMG, this is his intro. Why are you surprised? Do you know what channel this is? They have a company called Valuetainment. That's supposed to sound like luxurious and nice.
This was many years ago, and I said, "Good morning, sir," and he says, "I'm swimming with the tide."
Swimming with the tide. That's good.
Eric Adams might be the weirdest mayor in the United States, and he is also a corrupt piece of shit. And it's going to be interesting to see what he's like in long form, because I've never been able to actually sit through any of his long form stuff because he's also very boring.
Get behind the momentum, right?
That's right.
Now talk about New York. Did you think for a moment, you've been a New York native your entire life?
Is he going to talk about the corruption, or are we going to put that by the wayside? That is absolutely, there's zero chance that is coming up in this.
Yes.
Or if it does, it will be some fucking just like softball question from PBD to be like, so why were you unfairly maligned as like a criminal by your party? Why'd they turn on you? Like it's going to be something like that.
Captain, NYPD, growing up there, you've seen the trouble, you changed, as a young man.
The way those animals are arranged is hilariously cute. All my plushies or whatever, thank you.
And became a leader, run for mayor, and then all of a sudden today, you're going up against a guy, the mayoral race that everybody in America is following.
Yes.
To go on against a Zohran Mamdani, who on many ways you look at it, this is a person that's a communist. This is a person that's openly said how he feels about capitalism, how he said a lot about
okay, he's not a communist. I wish. He's just a democratic socialist.
Different things. How did things get to?
But again, everyone who's been watching for a while knows my hypothesis. People that are calling themselves socialists are communists, but they're too scared to say communist, so they say socialist.
The point that a candidate like this out of nowhere is now being seen as possibly a guy that could win.
That's a great question, because it's really not out of nowhere. Those of us who were watching what was taking place on the stage of not only New York City, but America, I told my team 6 months ago, this guy's going to win. And I need to be in a general so that I can go head to head.
6 months ago.
6 months ago, I sat down with my team. And I said to the reporters, I said, this is going to be the most fascinating race in the history of New York City.
Why is that?
What happened was he already had a ready-made army that we were ignoring. And if you go back, I was talking about the radicalization of our children. On our college campuses, to hate America, what we were seeing in the street, 10,000 people marching in our street, lifting up Hamas. And I was saying our children are being radicalized. And so all he had to do...
Yes, these certainly it is the university and education to blame for people's outrage at a genocide that's killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. This could only be the product of liberal ivory tower institutions, surely.
Once he did that, the army was already assembled and said, we want to follow someone. And he has become a symbol of the radicalization of our young people across this entire country, and specifically in New York.
But why though? I guess.
And not just that, we really need to underscore that they also just fucking love Hamas. Hamas is just huge in the United States. They pull like, I think about the United States and I just think about all of the Muslims that live here in total harmony alongside like Christians and secular people. Think about, how popular Islamism is.
It's
Huge
the question
fan.
I want to ask is why? Because the last 5 years, go COVID, right? If you want to pull up the chart, Rob, that Brandon had on how much money's moved from different states to different places. I mean, New York was known, and many will say till today, as
Eric Adams talked to this freak. Why are you surprised? Eric Adams himself is a freak. Certified freak. Okay?
greatest city in the world, right? New York's been that city, the Mecca, the financial capital of the world. Used to be London, now it's you guys. And Dana White comes and does an event here for UFC 2 or 3 years ago. In the interview afterwards, they ask him, they say, so what was UFC like Miami? He says, he said, we broke Madison Square Garden's record. He said, this is what LA used to be. It's the energy New York used to have. I think that's the messaging that he gave, where now a lot of people are looking at us saying, could Miami become the new New York City? Now, it's a lot of, but then the chart that shows the biggest difference is this, Rob, if you can pull up the numbers with the dollars. I don't know if you have it or not.
Pull it up,
It
Rob.
shows how much money moved here. Over $1 trillion of wealth moved out of California. California got the money to go to Texas. New York got the money right here. If you look at this, New York got the money to flow to Florida.
No way. You're telling me that when a crony like Ron DeSantis was elected, then suddenly there was all of this, all of these businesses came to Florida so they could like have a tax haven? No shit.
This is one of the charts. If you go to
You're
the other
blowing
one,
my
Rob, that
mind.
shows the dollar amount. You got a couple of them there. Go to the one on the left, the one that shows like the right there. If you look at this one, the dark purple is New York and California.
Right.
Over $1 trillion lost. Then if you look at states that gained plus trillion, the dark green, you'll see Florida. You'll see Texas is less than Florida, but you look at Tennessee, Carolina, a bunch of other
Aaron, did you ever go on Guy's show? Whose show? Who's Guy?
places gained the money.
Right.
What happened?
Like
the
I've
last-
been on Valuetainment Network show, like podcasts or whatever, but I've not been on PBD. I have met PBD. He's very nice, but I've not been on his podcast and I was not invited on it. So
5 years that caused the business owners and the wealth to leave your state and more importantly, your city,
Well,
New York City.
I think about when you think about what happened after COVID. After COVID, many people felt as though during COVID that they were being confined. They wanted to raise their children in an open atmosphere. They wanted to go somewhere where it was not that restricted. And then once they explored, once they went to travel to Florida, traveled to Connecticut and other areas, they figured out that, life is a little bit more open. Life is, you get a better bang for your dollar in some of these municipalities. Like the cost of housing here is far different from New York. Now, that number is changing because New Yorkers have a
did he try to sell you something? No, he didn't. He didn't.
and they raised the amount. Many people are saying, listen, we don't want you guys down here anymore. But the reality is that once people explore
According to him, apparently after the pandemic, people just felt like sightseeing more, and that's why they left.
outside of the city and understood that there's a good life outside the city. And there's a different type of personality that you have in the city. Just as we lost that money, we gained a large number of young people, particularly tech. A lot of new tech companies open. We became the hot spot for graduates, the number one location for graduates.
New York City.
New York City. It became an exciting place. Our nightlife is booming, and our economy is the strongest in history. Broadway had the strongest 12 months in history, and so the city is still thriving. But when you have someone like the Democratic primary winner saying that billionaires should not exist, they don't understand the economics. The person who drives the limousine should do well, and the person in the back seat of the limousine should do well. That's the ecosystem that's important for New York City.
What the fuck? Hold on.
Like the Democratic primary winner saying that billionaires should not exist, they don't understand the economics. The person who drives the limousine...
Okay. So I know that you recognize that wealth being concentrated in the hands of like a few plutocrats creates a government that is run by those people because they have far more say over the governments and everything and the private sector than you or I ever will because they literally have billions of dollars. I know that you feel that creates sort of like a dictatorial distribution of power that favors the wealthy. But what you don't understand is Econ 1401, apparently.
Limousine should do well, and a person in the back seat of the limousine should do well. That's the ecosystem that's important for New York City.
Rob, can you
Why this analogy with the limousine?
up the clip of Mamdani that he's referencing that he's being interviewed? and the lady who had a...
He's like, you as the driver should do as well as the capitalist that you're carting around for, like, you know, shit wages.
A couple great interviews with Trump asked, do you believe billionaires should exist? And his answer with the chuckle, he says, I don't think there should be billionaires. And then he says, but I'm willing to work
Can you believe Zoran Mamdani doesn't think that billionaires have a right to exist? Very fucked up of him. Very richest. He's money phobic.
I don't know how those two go together. I don't think there should be billionaires, but I'm willing to work with you to give up your money and lose your billionaire status, which doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a video of it in an interview. We've had it before. We've shown it. I think that's the one right there.
And it's a clear misunderstanding of the economics. When you look at our top 1%ers and how they ensure that we have teachers, firefighters, police officers, our roads paved, that's the ecosystem that exists. And if you don't understand that ecosystem, your actions can drive out a major portion.
Oh, for
Dude, these aren't even like platitudes. This is like buzzword central. He just keeps repeating like ecosystem, economy, like billionaires. These analogies are like not going anywhere. Does Adams actually still have a chance? Doesn't Cuomo sing on we'll eat at the anti-Zoran base that will vote for Adams? I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea like if he's going to drop out or if they're going to consolidate or whatever, because it seems like Andrew Cuomo is still going to be running.
I mean, you have in your city, Mayor, you have 123 billionaires. Number two is 71 or so.
Right.
You got most of the billionaires living in the city. And here's a question that was asked. I thought it was a very good question. Go for it, Rob.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
Oh my God. I did not know that she phrased it that way.
We should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Now, when you're speaking to billionaires in your city, at this point, they know you, right? I mean, I saw Bill Ackman.
Like the priorities, the fact that the framing of this is like, when you speak to your billionaire constituents, are they concerned? Let's talk about that. Not the other millions of average fucking New Yorkers or like in any of the 5 boroughs. No, let's focus on the billionaires that don't even have to live in New York City to be able to operate and like do their shit. You don't have to actually be based in New York City to do business there.
Posted something. Bill Ackman is a $10 billion guy. He's a heavyweight, carries a big stick. He has reputation. He's gone against some of the biggest guys. He's gone against Carl Icahn. He's gone against a lot of people in his career. And he's had to slay a lot of dragons, and he's been up and down, right? But he's a tough guy. And he puts a tweet, not this one, Rob. There's another one about, you know, him, you and Andrew Cuomo. This was it. In summary, in light of the inability to add a new name to the ballot and low probability of success to a write-in campaign, the only candidates with credible chance to beat Mamdani are Cuomo and Adams. I met yesterday with Adams and with Cuomo to discuss the upcoming election, and I spent an hour or so with each of them. In short,
part of the problem is that uneducated Americans never taught math. Don't truly realize the difference between a billion and a million. And the difference is that you can count to a million in like a few days or something like that, and it takes 11 years to count to a billion or something like that, right? How long does it take to count to 1 million versus 1 billion? $31 years. I was like way off. It wasn't 11 years. It's 11.5 days to count to 1 million, but it would take 31 years to count to 1 billion at the same pace. That's the fucking difference.
Short, my takeaway is that Adams can win the upcoming election and that governors should step aside to maximize Adams' probability of success. I say this while having a high regard to Andrew Cuomo and his contributions to New York State, but it was abundantly clear in his body language, his subdued energy, and his proposals to beat Mamdani that he is not up for.
Okay, this is just straight up revisionism from this fucking piece of shit. It wasn't his body language. It's the fact that he could not go out and campaign like he should have been able to because his past is marred with scandals. The dude literally had to resign because of sexual harassment that he fucking copped to. The state of New York settled hundreds of thousands of dollars with all these fucking women that he harassed. And that's not even getting into like the nursing home scandal where he like personally tried to cover up the fact that he was responsible for the deaths of thousands of elderly residents of New York because he directed them to nursing homes and they got trapped in there and got COVID.
When you speak to billionaires like this, what are they telling you? What is their concern about Mamdani?
Well, when you look at the policies, and you have to peel apart the policies and you get a full understanding of the impact. Let's take the Rikers Island, for example. That is our city jail. We have 7,400 of the most dangerous people in our city because
I think he may be the only person that's in favor of like keeping Rikers open. I'm pretty sure the majority of the Democratic candidates in the primary were all saying that they think it should be closed.
Bail reform, many of them did not have to go to jail. They were able to come out on our streets. He wants to open the jail and let them out. They're going to go back to the communities that they preyed on. They're going to impact low-income New Yorkers, and it's going to hurt them. His plan...
They're going to storm your house, and they're going to rape your wife when Zoran Mamdani personally opens the cell of every single resident at Rikers Island.
Supermarkets. We have many what we call bodegas. Those are grocery stores. We have many supermarkets. If you put a plan in place like that, you're going to devastate your middle income New Yorkers, your working class New Yorkers. I had a meeting with 250 supermarket owners who stated that this is going to devastate us. Increase $30 or $40 minimum wage. That is going to devastate the working class community.
You actually getting paid a living wage, that is really going to be devastating on the poor billionaires. Will someone please think of the job creators of New York City for once?
We have the largest number of small businesses that are operating now under this administration. The largest number.
I mean, he's just openly saying that, like, yeah, if you're able to afford to make ends meet, if you're actually paid what you're like somewhat, you know, like close to what you're fucking owed for the amount of labor that you're putting into the company that you work at day in, day out, yeah, the economy's gonna fucking collapse.
Of businesses in general.
And then they're also like, they just cannot believe that people are not huge fans of capitalism these days. Weird.
To record 11 times is because we know there's a marriage between a good wage and allowing the profit margin of a business to survive.
But okay, so when you say that, he says, you know, seize the means of production, right? The comments he's made about Jews, and when you look at the population, if I'm saying this correctly,
he's talking to somebody who literally met with a neo-Nazi a couple of weeks ago and smoked cigars with him on the porch of Gracie Mansion. By the way, a guy who has literally defended Louis Farrakhan, an actual fucking anti-Semite. By the way, we're gonna talk about Zoran Mamdani's anti-Semitism.
I believe the biggest Jewish population in America is in New York City, right? You guys have 960,000 Jews that live in New York City.
Yeah, it's like next to Tel Aviv. How does he not know this?
12% of the population is Jews. Used to be 2 million back in the days, in the 50s. 25% used to be Jews, but now 12%. A lot of them have left the city. So he calls them out. You know, he's not very complimentary of them, okay? He calls out billionaires. You got the most billionaires. He's saying he's going to do free buses for everybody. That's going to cost $3 billion that the billionaires are going to pay for because they're going to raise the taxes on the billionaires. And you've said before that mayor cannot raise taxes on billionaires.
Exactly.
That has to be done by the assembly, which is his job that he currently does right now.
Exactly.
And everything he's saying, you're hearing the stuff that he's saying, you're saying to yourself, none of this stuff makes sense. How is he the leading candidate? How does he have that?
Great question.
Again, keep in mind, PBD is like a multimillionaire, and this dude is a fucking scam artist who took bribes from Turkey.
Because 9% of voters voted. 9%. 91% they have yet to speak. And so the Democratic primary...
This is not like some bombshell revelation yet. There's always going to be way less participation in the primary of any single race. It doesn't matter even if it's in New York City. It's way less participation. And he's trying to obscure the fact that, like, in that 9%, it's still lots and lots of fucking people.
Is really the most liberal arm, the left arm of the voting population.
Got it.
So when you have 9% of New Yorkers who are speaking on behalf of 91% of New Yorkers, now the job becomes people
will you expand access to, like, will you make it easier for people to vote? No, then shut the fuck up.
Go up and say, whoa, what do we have here? You know, sometimes people are lackadaisical, apathetic, and, you know, not really going out and voting. Now you're seeing an energy that I've never witnessed before in politics.
How many?
I think PBD is gonna ask him, like, hey, even though you ran as a Democrat and won last time, why are you running as an independent this time?
Showed up to vote the last time you had in 2000 and I think won. How many showed up in 2021?
Less than, it was about close to 1 million. Now we went a million plus. I think it was.
Yeah, it was like fucking. Last Tuesday, Democrats spoke in a clear voice, delivering a mandate for an affordable city, politics of the future, and a leader unafraid to fight back against rising authoritarianism. Mamdani said in a statement Tuesday, "I'm humbled by the support of more than 545,000 New Yorkers who have voted for our campaign, and I'm excited to expand this coalition even further as we defeat Eric Adams and win a city government that puts working people first."
Right.
So that 9% constitutes like fucking almost 550,000 people practically.
900 and something thousand.
Okay, so I'm looking at this right now. New York City mayoral race, November 2nd of 2021, general election. Out of 4,911,000 registered voters, 1.149 ballots were casted.
Yes.
23.4%. Other reports found that figure to be around 23%. Let's just say million one showed up, right? Okay. And so far, only 9% have showed up to vote for Mamdani.
Yeah, a little over a million. A little over. I think they got to 1,000,005. This was an increase in voter participation because you had a lot of energy that people came out. And where Andrew went wrong, he did not mobilize. He didn't run a campaign. He took Mamdani for granted instead of going out and running a hard campaign. I say it all the time.
Okay, but why couldn't he run a hard campaign? They keep skipping over this.
New Yorkers have 5 fingers.
Because he won't and they're not going to draw attention to Cuomo's scandals, and he won't even do that because one, it's going to generate more press coverage for him, and they don't want that. But two, PPD also would rather have Cuomo or Eric Adams wins over Zoran Mamdani.
To show you the middle one the most.
So they're just going to chalk it up to why didn't you want to talk to any of the press? Why did you do this weird strategy? This is not how you get elected, when that was an intentional choice by him.
If you're not willing to go out,
DVA, why did you delete that comment? It was funny. Hey, Eric has the stuffing in turkey.
You want the job. He never wanted the job. He thought this was a consolation prize, and New Yorkers don't like that. And so not running a hard campaign, going head to head with him, social media and all the tools, you put yourself in a precarious position.
Rob, can you do me a favor, Rob?
He kept a low profile as well, so this is also just 100% projection.
You pull up ChatGPT and ask the following question.
Rob, pull up
How much was voter
ChatGPT.
participation in 2025?
Rob, pull up Grok.
New York City mayoral race. Can you just type up how much was voter participation in 2025 mayoral race? This is the number that came up to me. And again, I'm trying to see what's going on because it's a little bit confusing on what's going on. So this is the number that we see.
Right.
The primary was New York City's largest ever.
Right.
Nearly 1.15 million votes casted. Okay.
Casted? It says right there it's just cast. Anyway, English is a second language. I'm going to drop it. It triggers the fuck out of me that so many people say the word casted even though it's not a word. But whatever. He's there talking about, it's only 9%. Again, this was still record high turnout for a Democratic primary because Zoran got people excited to participate.
In 2021 general election. First round, Mamdani 462, Cuomo 384, Brad Lander 119. Total ballots around 1 million. Early voting surge with about 94,000 cast in the first 3 days, more than twice the 43,000 in 2021. So this is 2x, more than 2x.
Right.
Overall turnout was under 30% of registered Democrats, consistent with the past New York primary. So that's the numbers we're looking at right now.
Right.
So you chose to become an independent. When I look
so we're just going to skip over the fact that he tried to make it sound like barely anybody voted, even though that same number, less voters, carried him to the victory for the office that he currently holds, unfortunately. I guess we're not going to interrogate that whatsoever. Classic PPD.
Your history with your past. Last night, I'm at a local Italian restaurant that I go to all the time, Casa D'Angelo, and I'm there, and I can't leave the place. Everyone's asking me, I saw you're going to have the mayor on. Let me tell you. They were sitting in the entire family. I want to give these guys the right shout-out because they'll know that we were talking yesterday. It was the Shortino family, right? Anthony and Michael. And the family sitting there, the wife, the mother, everybody. Let me tell you, we're Republicans, but we can't have Mamdani. We're going to be getting behind him. He's a good guy. He's got to do this. Then the other table, New York. Because, South Florida, there's a lot of New York. And you're seeing this surge, you're seeing this number taking place with the level of interest on what's going to happen in New York City. But Mamdani is the lead today. And when I think about you, and I think about, your past, what you've done, how you came up, and I want to look
Anybody else in their in their spare time think about Eric Adams? And what comes to mind when you think about Eric Adams and his tenure as New York City mayor or his past generally?
If you were always registered a Democrat.
Surely it's nothing but fond memories, right?
Right. You were a Republican 95, 97 to 2001. So you were Republican for 4 years. And then you switched to Democrat, and then you became independent. And when I ask around, people who know you, who like you, I don't know a lot of people that don't like you. Almost everybody I talk to, they like you. We have a friend, Alex Spiro. I'm sure you know who Alex is.
Yes, I do.
We spoke this morning. He said, let him know that, Alex is a heavyweight.
Yes,
you know who Alex is. So,
it doesn't get any heavier.
No, it doesn't get any heavier than Alex. No, Alex is as heavy as it gets. Yeah, he's represented everybody.
That's right.
Trump, Musk, a lot of JC, a lot of guys. So
is it like a requirement that PPD always has a guest on his fucking podcast that has this huge ass vein in the middle of their forehead? Because usually it's Vinny that has this throbbing vein when he's going off screaming about something. But now Eric Adams is bringing it.
So the question becomes, you go Republican, you go Democrat, now you're independent. I ask, why did that happen?
Can't wait for the left to turn on Mamdani when he turns out to be sane like AOC. I mean, it's going to happen because he's already like hiring. He's trying to get in good with the party. He's already hiring like DNC consultants to manage the campaign heading into the general. And I saw that people were mad about that.
He said, well,
I mean, like, they're like not wrong that you should not want to be like liked by the party if you're a figure like him that's supposed to be antagonistic to it. But he also does need to win. So I don't know how I feel about it yet.
You go Democrat, now you're independent. I ask, why did that happen? They said, well, you have to understand New York politics. You know, this is...
Someone will have a stroke on his show one day. Inshallah.
As Republican of a Democratic and independent candidate you'll have, but if he goes as a Republican, I said, you know what made Trump attractive is the following. And I'm just going to talk openly. I'd love to see what you're going to say. Yes. So he came out and he said, look, this is what I am. Boom, 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 boom. So everybody's like, okay, I know how to get behind him. Because I think this is the worst time ever to be wishy-washy to try to win everybody over.
Why is he trying to act like Trump is just this nobody that came onto the scene who and like made his pitch to the American public and it landed the way that it did? He got all of this free coverage because he was a fucking reality TV show host turned presidential candidate. And then he said, I'm going to build a wall and I'm going to ban Muslims. 2016, Donald Trump, free advertising. Again, these people, they kind of like lean in too much to this like great manism with Trump, where they're like, he was just so amazing. And he just gave the most profound pitch. Voters couldn't help but be drawn to him. And it's like, dude, $2 billion worth of free media for Donald Trump. This has more of a fucking impact on why he was able to get to the White House in 2016 than any one thing that he said, any one rally or any one advertisement. Because he didn't even spend that much. And like Matt Taibbi points this out in his book, I think Insane Clown President, how when it came to Donald Trump rallies and like Hillary Clinton rallies, CNN was completely fine showing like a Trump podium for like, oh, look, his speech is about to happen. They'll show that with no editorialization, no commentary or whatever, but they wouldn't show Bernie Sanders because when Bernie Sanders was talking and giving his speech, he's criticizing Capitol and actually like talking about things that the media can't just broadcast without there being like pushback and editorialization or contextualizing or fact checking or whatever. So yeah, they were so concerned about that and the fact that they thought that Trump just kind of nakedly looked crazy to people that they didn't realize that when you just rebroadcast his rallies, all you're doing is helping him get his word out there. You're not actually making him look crazy. You're helping him campaign.
Right? Especially in the city you're in. And when I look at this, I'm like, you don't give me Democratic vibes. Even when you were doing the sanctuary city, I'm like, dude, this guy knows this is not going to, like, you know, you even saw, why are we giving away the money? And the moment you started saying that, they came after you. Immediately, we got to take this guy out, right?
Well said.
So what caused you to go from being a registered Republican, not for a split second, for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, to a Democrat, then an independent?
And so let's think about this for a moment, because you're right. Our city, both Dems and Republicans, have different feelings on different topics. And what you'll find throughout those entire years, I've been consistent. Public safety. We have to be safe because that is the prerequisite.
I've consistently been a grifter over the span of my career.
Prosperity. And I have been always focused on that. My moderate Dems, even progressive Dems.
You're right. I have no actual views. I say whatever I need to say and do whatever I need to do to get elected.
Moderate Republicans, even conservative Republicans, independents, they all say you have always been clear that our city must be safe. My children must go to school safe. I must be able to live on a safe neighborhood.
You really have repeated yourself, and no one can deny that Eric Adams has repeatedly said that the city should be safe.
That is the foundation of my run. Party lines and party labels don't define a person. You know, I may be a blue Democrat, but I'm red, white, and blue. I love this country. I had a 19-year-old uncle that died in Vietnam defending this country.
It was not like the paradigm that I thought was going to. I may be a blue Democrat, but I'm red, white, and blue.
He didn't agree on everything, but he said, when my country called, I responded. That's the energy that I come from. So when you look at someone like Michael Bloomberg, who was one time a Democrat before he ran Republican independent. Donald Trump was a Democrat at one time, you know, before he ran Republicans. Those of us who love the country, we use the vehicle to continue to serve the country. The vehicle doesn't define who we are.
Why were you a Republican 97 to 01?
I was a police officer at the time, and we saw an unbelievable lax
First real question from PPD.
Criminal justice reform. We were doing some of the things that we're doing now, allowing people who commit crimes. There was a repeated revolving door. Now, as a police officer, I was seeing this all the time and telling those who were in office that these laws are not the way we should be going. And the Republican Party started defining clearly the whole public safety agenda. I have a straight public safety, business-friendly, law enforcement agenda, and that's why.
Why'd you leave it in 01? Because 01 is when Giuliani and Bernard Kerik and the late Bernard Kerik,
This is the soft launch of the Archer, and unironically, Eric Adams probably would have a better chance of winning if he had just filed as a Republican.
He's a good friend,
streets, right?
Because the guy who captured the Republican nomination for the nomination for the mayoral race is definitely not winning. Curtis something.
He was a good friend of ours as well. Yeah. So why 01? Was it after 9/11 when you switched back to the Democratic Party, or was it before 9/11?
It was when I switched back was around the time when I said, you know what, this is a Democratic town. It's almost similar to what Michael Bloomberg did. It's a Democratic town. You need to be on the Democratic Party if you want to get elected to get something done. If you want to get elected to get something done, you have to understand what vehicle to use to get elected to get something done.
Did somebody knock on the door and tell you to switch, or was that like, hey, Mayor Adams, if Eric, Captain Adams, if you do this, I think you can end up being a mayor, you can have a political career? Was it just a decision you made? Was it an event that took place with Giuliani and Kerik? What was it that got
some of my mentors, when we sat down and I saw what was happening in the city and what direction we was traveling in the city, they said, Eric, don't only complain about it. You need to get into elected office to do something about it. I had a young man who was 11 years old. He was arrested 2 or 3 times for robbery.
Young man goes on to describe 11-year-old boy.
And I was doing midnight tours of duty, and I walked into the precinct. I saw him in there.
But I mean, I expect nothing less from a guy who thinks that the NYPD should be militarized at all times.
At everyone, cursing at everyone. And throughout the night, I befriended him, and I asked him, what's going on? He broke down and started crying. His dad was in jail for homicide. His mother was selling a body on the streets, hooked on crack cocaine, and he was out of school for 3 months, and no one knew about it, that he was out. And I realized that putting handcuffs on these children is not going to solve the problem. And when I spoke with many of my mentors, they
PPD makes me mad because I worked in sales. He's the classic VP of sales, just a half smooth talking bullshitter who barely graduated high school. Correction, he almost graduated Santa Monica Community College, which he attended because Arnold Schwarzenegger inspired him to. Get your facts right. And also, he's a real rags to riches story because he literally was in a refugee camp because of the Iran-Iraq war, which is why he's like this massive, like, Iranian expat and like loves Israel and loves the United States because he went from being very, very poor as an immigrant came to the United States and made a bunch of money through an MLM. And very inspiring. The American dream right there.
He said, listen, you did time in the street as a police officer. You see the end of the problem. Now go in government to reverse the problem. And that put me back on the pathway.
Got it. So the inspiration was to leave the Republican Party for that, but it was also, if you're going to have a political career in it, join the Democratic Party. They're going to have your back. You'll have a career politically there. Now, you went there, okay? And
not always had my back. I was always the outsider.
Oh, well, that's where I'm going to go next because what I notice a pattern with New York City politics is
Came here when he was young, though, like a kid. Yeah. And he used to be a bodyguard for a cocaine dealer. That's in his Wikipedia page. Paul Bet Davidson. Let's see. I thought he was Israeli at first. I didn't realize he was from Tehran, Iran, until I got into the lore. Yeah, during his early adulthood, he lived a lifestyle which he was focused on partying before joining the United States Army. He claimed to have briefly worked as a bodyguard for a leading Los Angeles cocaine dealer. This period, according to Bet David, contributed to his worldview. Okay. Anonymous, ambiguous statement about what the fuck that even means. Does it contribute positively or negatively? Just contributed to it. And then Bet David said that after his time in the U.S. Army, he reconnected with a high school friend who reintroduced him to Christianity. So after being a bodyguard for the cocaine dealer, then he embraced Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, as one does.
Andrew Cuomo, governor, 2-term, father, 3-term, brother, CNN, right? So he's there, he's doing his governor thing, and I think Andrew maybe even been 3 terms. I think it's 2 terms. Two terms, yeah. And at first, COVID happens, we have to hear him every day. And he was on TV every day. Remember when he's doing all the updates? He's eating his burgers or whatever he was doing, and we're getting the update. Right. This guy's going to be the president.
Eating his burgers?
And he'd be better than Trump, right? And then all of a sudden he started calling
They're
out.
complaining that he hosted like a COVID, like a press conference daily in opposition to Trump because Trump would go up there and embarrass himself and like interrupt Fauci. That's it. That's what he's whining about.
A little bit of the left. And then de Blasio was an AOC went against Amazon. And, we don't want Amazon. It's like, wait a minute. That's 25,000 jobs at $150,000 salary. What are you guys talking about? Let them come in. No, they're going to increase the rent. And
drug dealer turned MLM scammer. God, I hate these schools. Oh, I thought you said you were saying drug dealer influenced him to turn into an MLM scammer. I was like, hey, don't talk down to drug dealers like that. At least when you go to a drug dealer, you actually get a fucking product. When you go to a fucking MLM, you get nothing.
$1,000 salary. What are you guys talking about? Let them come in. No, they're going to increase the rent and And then Bezos took the jobs elsewhere, right? But then the moment he started kind of calling out against the establishment, instantly, the sexual charges came up, the $15,000, which the old folks owned, that was his mistake as a governor that he went through. Major mistake. Could have been a fatal mistake that he made on his career. But they went after him. The same people that were saying he should run for office and be president, then all of a sudden went after him. You, New York, at first, you're aligned. At first, you sound like you're trying to be a gamer with the Democratic Party. And then
a gamer?
All of a sudden, us who were watching it closely were like, ooh, he's not comfortable with that. Ooh, he just called him out. Ooh, the $550 million.
And keep in mind, PPT is not doing some sort of this is not even like a 10D chess thing, just like a 3D chess, I'm going to ask all of these hard-hitting questions or whatever. PPT is in lifetime trying to piece together why the fuck Eric Adams has been all over the place in his political career, from Republican to Democrat to independent back to Democrat back to independent. He's genuinely, you're watching his the little kid wheels turn in his head to try to understand this. It's not something that he did any research for. He's having his producer pull up fucking Chat GPT to figure it out.
Credit cards and all this stuff.
And he all of that, and he can't put two and two together that this dude's just a fucking grifter.
Ooh, he just called that Biden.
He genuinely thinks that there was some sort of ideological transformation or something that moved him from place to place that was rational and not just completely driven by political opportunism.
Yelp, they're going to come after him. Boom. Almost instantly, the turkey, hey, we want to give this event, they're coming in, can we give them a better experience? All the stuff that happened with that. And then now your name is being mentioned in different places, and now publicly they're defaming you in their own way, and you're going through your lawyer's telling you.
Defaming in this context means reporting on the crimes that he did and struck a deal with Trump to cover up by cooperating with ICE.
1.5, you can't say anything
to get the charges dropped.
Why? The pattern of trying to make it in the Democratic Party, when they have your back, they have your back. The vibe I get is the moment you decide to be a man of your own, they're almost hanging on to receipts to come and destroy your life. Is that what caused you to leave the party?
No, let's go back for a moment, because you said a lot, and I want to peel some of that back.
Yeah.
Peel some of that back.
Wait, you just said that the Democrats will go after people that leave the party, and then you're acknowledging that he left the party. But why would somebody leave a party if they fear retribution, or that the Democrats won't have your back if you leave?
I was always an outsider. I always was a person that, when you look at the policies of the party, for the most part, of the whole public safety, they tend to shy away from the public safety conversation. And I never did, because being on the streets, seeing the victims of crime, I was always a believer that innocent people should not be the victims of violence. And that was not always the tone. When I ran for mayor and I said I'm running on the platform of public safety, my consultant said you can never win on that. There's no way you can win on the public safety platform. You got to run on another platform. And I said, no, I know what I'm seeing every day.
Interesting.
And I've always stayed focused.
This is such a lie. There is absolutely nobody who said that you can't run on a fucking law and order platform in New York City. Why?
On that. That was always my North Star. And the reason even Madani can start talking about affordability is another thing, because I made the city darn safe. We're the safest big city in America. And so I've always pushed back on
this is a lie, by the way.
What I felt was wrong.
He's responsible for the city being safe. There was already a downward trend on crime or whatever. Do we need to every single time Eric Adams I watch anything from him, I'm always this close to pulling up the fucking clip from Olayemi where she's just schooling him left and right on the Breakfast Club over all of the stuff related to crime and his fear mongering surrounding it.
He's rooted in
and how he takes credit for improving things that were already trending downwards, or that he had nothing to do with.
Your belief. Don't go away from what you believe in. And if you Google me from 20, 40 years ago, you're going to say this guy was saying the same thing. He was always pushing public safety and justice, public safety and justice. And so when I ran for mayor, there was many people that was concerned that I was mayor. You know, when I got elected, I said I'm the new face of the Democratic Party. Those working class people that's going to fight for a working class agenda. And even when we came down to, which I think was the turning point, was the
working class agenda that he ran on and won apparently did not include economics, because he just said that the only reason why Zoran Mamdani would be talking about anything related to the economy or affordability is because the city is just so safe because of Eric Adams. There's nothing else to talk about, even though you're admitting that several decades ago you ran on the same platform and it was successful. It's almost like it's not a novel idea to run on like, yeah, I'm going to lower crime and I'm going to put more money in your fucking pockets.
An asylum seeker crisis. That was a turning point. It was costing us billions of dollars, totally 7.7.
I'm so mad New York City is forcing us to support Adams. I feel like he is so mid. Is today the day that I ban Male Rights USA, you guys? No one's forcing you to support Adams. You're making a choice to do that.
$7 billion now total. We were getting 4,000 a week, 8,000 every 2 weeks. And we had the federal government did not allow me to stop the buses from coming in, did not allow me to allow them to work. Some of them were waiting a year and a half to 2 years to work. City law required me to feed, house, and clothe. I educated 50,000 children. And so when I saw this was devastating us financially, because those dollars should have gone to the services of our city. That is when I believe they
Yeah, it was really, really devastating for New York City when they had to actually see to the safety and security and like care for its residents, the most vulnerable people like children and babies, giving them like diapers and clothing. Yeah, Eric Adams thinks that was a bad thing apparently, and you were taking usually the phrase goes like, oh, you're taking food out of like a hungry kid's mouth. Well, Eric Adams likes the phrase that you're taking like a baton away from like a cop or something, or like a shiny new gun that they could have, or better riot gear.
Decided that, you know what, we're going to come after this guy. And, when I heard the president talk about it on the campaign trail, I didn't know the president. Never met him. He both was in the same city. Never met him until he was running for office.
You and the president have never met?
Never met until we were until he was running for office, and I met him at the Alfred E. Smith dinner, a huge Catholic dinner.
2016 or 24?
This one here, 24.
So 24, you've never met him?
Never met him. Never met him.
Oh, wow.
He was on the campaign trail without knowing me, saying, look what they're doing to this mayor. This is wrong what they're doing to this mayor.
I saw that.
Many people didn't read the indictment.
How dare you take care of children? Don't you know that there are starving cops?
Charged and indicted for calling the fire department and asking them to do a building inspection, not to pass it, do a building inspection, because the president of Turkey was coming to see the opening of his new building.
Oh my God, why would this dumbass bring up anything related to Turkey? Why?
And they stated that, throughout the last 10 years, when you travel...
You totally pivoted off of this. PPT clearly does absolutely no fucking research for any of his guests or any of that. He's learning in lifetime because he's a lazy piece of shit and a fucking hack interviewer. Why are you bringing up your own L's?
And pay for the trip. You asked for upgrades. I got upgrades when
I'm here for it. It's beneficial, but it's just so stupid.
Governmental travel, and when I was on personal travel, do we have more legroom?
Didn't expect Adams to bring it up. I mean, I guess he has to preempt it. I have to guess that he has to preempt it, right? At least this way he can narrative spin.
Which acts all the time. They took that and said that because you called the fire department and asked them to do a building inspection, that we're going to charge you with bribery. I was facing 33 years in prison. 33 years in prison.
God, no way. Could you imagine if Eric Adams went to prison for 33 years? Could you imagine if Eric Adams went to Rikers Island and they locked him in a cell and threw away the key, and when they opened and later when they closed Rikers Island, they forgot about Eric Adams and they left him there to rot and die? Could you imagine if that happened? What a tragedy that would be.
And it wasn't until I read Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters, that you see the lawfare that has been taking place in our country.
What did you
knowledge? Kash Patel's book.
Find out who was behind the whole thing?
Well, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District was a person named Damian Williams. When he left after President Trump got elected, he opened a website.
The Damian Williams that worked on the Epstein file and worked on Marianne Comey, like that Damian Williams?
If it's the same, I don't know the files he was on.
Yeah, this is the Damian Williams that worked on the Ghislaine Maxwell file, on Sam Bankman-Fried, Sean Combs. This is the same one.
And Brian Benjamin, in the Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, highest ranking African-American in the state of New York. They indicted him, destroyed his...
Can you explain what happened? I don't get the fire department. He's acting like the reason why he was facing 33 years in prison is because he ordered there to be an inspection of a building. And apparently this was like... He's claiming that it was being used as some sort of attempt to say that he was like colluding with an agency that he shouldn't have been to give like a favorable like building code evaluation or something like that. It's a lie.
Career and then drop the charges. But what Americans need to know is that they felt as though they were.
Wait, why is Eric Adams bad? I don't really know anything about him or if he's lying or not. See, okay, just watch his mouth. If his mouth is moving, he is lying. This guy was facing corruption charges, and the only reason why he got them dropped is because he colluded with the Trump administration to effectively let ICE take over the city, and that they would cooperate with them to deport people so that he could get the charges dropped.
Said was they're sovereign. Just think about that for a moment. Sovereign, when you're sovereign, you don't respond to anyone. They didn't feel they were supposed to respond to main justice. They didn't feel they were supposed to respond to the president. They felt as though they were an entity within America. That's not in the Constitution. Everyone answers to someone.
Do you think what they did to Andrew Cuomo was also unfair?
I don't know the full scope of what happened, and understanding the full.
I don't know what happened to the former governor of the city or of the state. Whose city, I'm in like the major city in that state I'm in charge of. Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Scope.
Were you supportive of him as a governor, what he was doing in New York? Were you somebody that said, I like him as a governor more than I like Hochul as a governor?
No.
You prefer Hochul over Cuomo?
I prefer Hochul, yes. Hochul's actions over Cuomo. Let me tell you why. Cuomo passed bail reform that turned the revolving door criminal justice system. As you mentioned, Cuomo killed 15,000 loved ones in the nursing home. Cuomo also...
this is not a lie. He did do this. I guess it's like hyperbolic to say that he killed them or whatever, but he due to the decisions that he made, those people died, and then he covered it up. The cover up is the bigger scandal there. It's not even that the fact that they died, honestly.
Laws that many people may not understand the depth of them.
Because if he had just made the mistake and been transparent about it, it would have been hard for him, but he wouldn't have gotten in trouble. Like the things that he was indicted for is because he tried to pretend like that didn't happen.
Like raise the age, canceling supplement for people who are in housing, and created our housing crises, closing psychiatric beds, and creating, when we see people on our street walking around with serious mental illness. And so when you look at his programs, I had to fix those programs. His cannabis law, I had to close 1,400 cannabis shops that were creating violence in our communities. And so there were many laws. He succumbed to the left. The far left that's in Albany, if he did not succumb to the far left and went based on his principles, I would not have had to fight and clean up our city. I'm fighting with the far left in Albany, the far left in the city council. It's a constant battle, and much of this is coming to the far left hurt us.
New York City, famously known for its far left politics and culture.
Your relationship with Letitia James and seeing what she did with Trump when you were following it, because that's in your city, so you're seeing it on a daily basis. What do you think about what she did with Trump's case?
Well, she's the state attorney general,
sure, right.
And they conduct investigations. That we're not privy to those investigations, but I don't think that at no time should we ever use an investigatory body to go after individuals. Advertising.
Okay, but we're talking about the president of the United States.
Ahead of time that that she was going to go after the president. I don't think that was the right
Yes, because the president has broken the law. The president is literally a convicted felon.
thing to do while you're campaigning, to say you're going to specifically go after someone. So I don't know the depth of her investigation.
And you know the stories now with Letitia James. Do you have a relationship with her, or you don't have a relationship?
I've known Letitia James for years. We came up.
Hochul is further left than Cuomo. BTW is not great, but as a New Yorker, it's noticeably different. A lot of the hate, I have not evaluated her policy record or any of that. But one, pretty much anyone would have been better than Cuomo, given his record. And two, I feel like she just gets a lot of hate because people find her uncharismatic, and not necessarily because they could name a specific thing that she's done or an action she's taken that they didn't agree with.
Through politics together, right? And I am very, very, as my attorney Alex Sparrow told me when I was going through my investigation, that Eric, don't you say anything until this is over, and now I'm free to talk about it, and I talk about it. So I'm very leery of talking about investigations that's dealing with other people, because they should have the right to go by their attorney.
The only reason I'm saying
it's so amazing that the guy who's like, I'm fucking tough on crime or whatever, I oppose bail reform, is talking about like, oh, but innocent until proven guilty is very important. How do I know this? I learned it after it happened to me. And if it happened to me, it could happen to you. So I like to extend every grifter and politician that exists in the United States government the same benefit of the doubt that I should have been granted.
Because while you're watching what
just like so flagrantly, like, and just nakedly self-interested.
President said about you, to say how unfair it is what they're doing to you. Did you at any moment watch some of your colleagues in New York that you came up with saying, dude, what are you guys doing? This is fully unfair, what you're doing to the guy, to Trump, and we know it's not true. Why are you guys going after him the way that you are? Did you ever have any types of conversations, either publicly or privately, with your peers saying, I think you guys are crossing the line a little bit. You're using the justice system against the president.
We don't have that relationship that she would go into the investigation.
These people just assume that, like, again, the president will never, the American president, even though they'll slander Biden, Kamala Harris, like any other Democratic politician on a daily basis, for you to even suspect or believe that Donald J. Trump, is a crook, you must be a traitor to this country.
That she's doing. We don't communicate like that. I don't get
personally, just your own opinion, though.
That conversation with her.
Your own opinion. Like, did you publicly, have a sentiment to say, I don't think it's fair what they're doing to President Trump?
In my gatherings, I've often talked about this is wrong. This is wrong. Lawfare is always wrong to me, no matter what.
Lawfare. Holding the president accountable when they break the law. Lawfare.
Wrong. If anyone attempt to use lawfare on someone, I've always felt that wrong.
Yeah, lawfare is when you enforce the law. That's true.
Justice and public safety, and I always make that clear.
So you would say it was unfair some of the ways New York handled President Trump. Yeah, they were trying to do everything for him to not be able to run.
And when you do an analysis now and you read back over what he was charged with in some of those cases, you have to ask yourself, just as I asked myself when I looked at what I was charged with, how are we stopping the President of the United States from running for office and the timing of that? And then you look at what President Biden did. President Biden pardoned his son. President Biden said the Justice Department was politicized. He said that.
Yeah, any words for the fact that Trump pardoned 1,500 January 6ers? No, then shut the fuck up.
I said it, President Trump said it, and I don't think we should ever politicize our Justice Department.
That's fair enough to know that. So Andrew Cuomo, yes, there's multiple stories here.
That's not going to stop unless you're advocating for there to be the abolition of unilateral presidential pardons. There's no, like, all you're doing is just like pissing in the wind.
One of them says you're asking him to step down, he's asking you to step down. So has that conversation happened with the two of you guys together, and how's that conversation gone?
Think about this for a moment. We knew prior to the election, pre-election, we knew I was going to be on the general election. We knew that already. Here's something else we knew. We knew Madani was going to be on the general election. He was going.
Trump pardoned the Navy SEAL who straight up murdered a POW. There was a report from the Daily Beast that he is considered pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, apparently. And the only reason why he didn't was because people in his cabinet were saying, don't fucking do it. Are you insane?
Working Families Party. Here's something else we knew. We knew Madani was going to be on the general election. He was going to be on the Working Families Party line, no matter what happened. That's another line. Cuomo files his independent petition to get on the line knowing that. So this scenario that's set up now with the three of us in it, that's a scenario he created. He knew that no matter what was going to happen, Madani and I were going to face each other, or he and I were going to face each other. He created a scenario where all three of us are now facing each other. He should do the right thing for New York. He lost to him. He spent $25 million. New Yorkers heard his voice.
He's just an empty shell. He took how much money? Andrew Cuomo take to during Dem primary mayoral run. $8 million. Cuomo's $8 million war chest could prove difficult to spend in the New York City mayoral race. The ex-governor stands to raise more new money, but transferring the gubernatorial cash would be a huge boost. There's a number already looming large over New York City's mayoral race. $7.7 million. That's how much money former Governor Andrew Cuomo had in his state campaign account last month. And he only got more after this.
Supported. Now allow me to go one-on-one with him because I'm going to.
He got 8 million. Actually, it was that was just the start. Hold on. If I put Cuomo, Bloomberg, 8 million. The CEO of Netflix was the one who also donated. I want to see which billionaires backed Cuomo. This one. See the list of billionaires who bet big on the New York City mayoral primary and lost. Like insane amounts of money went into this. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman and William Lauder, the executive chairman of the Estee Lauder companies, each gave $500,000 to the group. In the days leading up to the primary, Ackman wrote or reshared multiple posts on X that were critical of Mamdani. Media mogul Barry Diller, Netflix chairman Reed Hastings, and billionaire hedge fund manager Daniel Loeb each donated $250,000. Alice Walton, a billionaire philanthropist from the family that founded Walmart, contributed $100,000. Citadel CEO Ken Griffin gave $50,000 to Sensible City, a separate anti-Mamdani group. Several of those same billionaires, including Ackman, Loeb, and Griffin, supported President Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, a fact that Mamdani frequently emphasized on the campaign trail. Just insane. So all of these same people, they still want him to, they don't like the outcome of the primary. They still want him to win. So of course they're pouring money into his re-election campaign for the general.
Beat him. I'm going to finally get my story out of the success and the turnaround.
Ackman's wife is really good friends with Epstein BTW. Is that true? I just knew that she plagiarized, which is funny.
Of our city, a cycle.
100K seems like an insult to these people. It really is like a penny.
COVID.
They're tossing a penny in a wishing well.
I brought back the economy. What you're seeing in New York City. New York City is thriving again. Bond raters increased my bond rating. Seeing how I was fiscally prudent and made sure we use our dollars correctly.
How different is it running for mayor of a city like New York City versus running for governor of a state, New York? How different?
Totally different. Totally different.
What's the different strategy?
Okay.
Such a dumb guy question, man.
First of all, when you're running for governor, you're in this cocoon. You're basically popping out at different events every once in a while. You have the security around you. No one is really getting close to you. When you're running for mayor, you are in the thick of it. And he thought he could come out every Sunday to a church event and go back home. That's not how running for mayor is. You're in the subways. You're in the park. It is the epitome of shaking hands, kissing babies. You are
wow,
you
so
are
hard,
entrenched,
very difficult.
Embedded in the city, and that's what Mamdani was willing to do. And Andrew was not willing to do that. I do that every day. No one does it better than me of interacting with everyday New Yorkers, because authentically, I love the city.
This is the same guy who, I don't know why he posted this. Like he posted like a daily, like a day in the life vlog. And people notice, like, again, all of the times that he's putting.
And God is
There's a point in this where he's pretending like it's way, like, when it says like 9 a.m., but it's 11 in the morning. And this guy is like, I'm working tirelessly on the campaign. It's so difficult. Nobody understands.
Love New York. That's not a bumper sticker for me. That's not a T-shirt.
Oh no! Listen, you sound New York. You talk New York. You walk New York. And you were on our friend's show. Andrew Schultz, and when they're talking about New York flagrant, all that stuff.
Oh my God, he's talking about flagrant pod.
So okay. So if that's the case, you're seeing what Mamdani's doing in the streets. You're seeing how he's campaigning. He's using social media in an incredible fashion, where he's getting a ton of momentum. When you're walking in the streets of New York, how are people treating you, and what are you hearing about how people are treating Mamdani when he's walking the streets of New York?
Listen, you're going to have a population, because it's a heated race. So you're going to have a population that's going to say, "Hey, go ahead, Mamdani, keep going." Then you got that strong population that's saying, "Mayor, you must win this. You must win this." Those on his side that voted for him are saying, "Hey, keep going, keep going." My voters are saying, "You must win. You must win for this city." And that's a different energy. So people are acknowledging the energy that he has brought to the campaign. They're missing the energy of those who are saying, you need to win, Eric, to continue the success of this city. Because you know why? They're not loud. They're not boisterous. They're not in your face. They're not yelling at you. They're not cursing you out. They're going about their business, doing their job.
He's talking about billionaires. Like, he's trying to present it like it's working class people that are just like dying for Eric Adams to be reelected and stay mayor, when you're talking about, yes, quiet, silent, the silent minority, right? Billionaires.
Every day, but they're registering to vote, and they're going to show up at the polls. We're going to register 1 million new voters to add with the existing voting population.
Yeah, who are some surprising names that are getting behind you? Who are some names?
If that was any other Democrat saying that in a city that's populated by a ton of immigrants, the next question would immediately be, are you trying to increase the amount? Are you Are you trying to allow illegals to vote in your election so you could win?
That you would have said, I would have never thought for those guys to get behind me that they're getting behind me in this race publicly.
Yeah, well, there's a host of, you see some of the articles that, people are saying, Andrew should step down, Curtis should step down, everyone should mobilize behind Eric. I mean, the public comments are clear. You just saw a Bill make a comment who's extremely influential and powerful in the city. But then there's also those...
Yes, shocker. Bill Ackman, a billionaire, is influential and powerful. Did you know, Eric Adams, not just in New York City, but probably internationally and certainly nationally because of how much fucking money he has.
Names, they're not A-list names. The rabbis, the ministers, the Sikh community, the bodegas associations, of the supermarket, independent supermarkets. So it's these real New Yorkers that are important because you could have an A-list name, but you're going to need everyday working class people to be in the street to mobilize and have a grassroots organic campaign.
When you think about power players, power brokers, like you just said something very interesting, where the public name is what? You got Bill Ackman. Everyone knows who he is, right? Mm-hmm. Jamie Dimon just came out and said something this morning. Rob, I don't know if you saw that one. Jamie Dimon this morning said, Jamie Dimon lashes out on Marxist Zohran Mamdani, left's DEI push, big hearts with little brains. Right, then you have...
I'm so glad that the CEO of JP Morgan Chase is weighing in on what he thinks about a socialist candidate. I really needed to get his opinion.
Trump called him the communist lunatic, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the phrase he used, right? You got all these other people that are calling him different things.
Trump fumbles by not calling Zohran Mamdani Commie Mamdani.
Fraud, because he claimed he's an African-American on his Columbia application, and he put, I think, black and Asian, but he's not necessarily African-American to put, well, you know what, I shouldn't have done that all this.
He's from South Africa, and he's part Indian, which is Asian. And he clarified, I'm also from Uganda. The New York Times, I shouldn't be surprised. Because they said they weren't going to endorse him, and then they all but endorsed Cuomo by doing a hit piece on Zoran, but let's see. College application. Mamdani identified as Asian and African-American on college application. Zoran Mamdani, the Democrat running for mayor of New York City, was born in Uganda. He doesn't consider himself black, but said that the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background, which is true. And then, where did they get this? Again, this was literally like source laundering through like a neo-Nazi that had fucking leaked this shit. Well, Mr. Mamdani, because I think there was like a hack of Columbia's this is what it was. Last month's cyber attack appears to have been carried out in order to see if Colombia was still using race-conscious affirmative action in its admission policies after the Supreme Court effectively barred the practice in 2023. While Mr. Mamdani was not a target of the hack, the information about him was included in a database of millions of student applications. Again, _applications. He didn't even go to Columbia. He didn't even get in. This was just on an application to a school he applied to. So Columbia going back decades. The data was shared with the Times by an intermediary who goes by the name Cremu on Substack and X. He provided the data under condition of anonymity, although his identity has been made public elsewhere. He is an academic who opposes affirmative action and writes often about IQ and race. This is the source of this stupid fucking story, this non-story that makes it to the Times. Again, just straight up ripping like neo-Nazi talking points. Very cool.
Other stuff. But who is the Robert Moses of New York today? Because back in the days when you read about the power broker, Robert Moses, right? And you hear the kind of influence he had,
right?
Where everything had to flow through him, right? He was the guy that...
And Robert Moses was I think he was the former Secretary of State for New York.
The biggest power broker New York had in a long time, how he built the roads, the bridges, the controversy behind it, all that other stuff. When I look up and say
American urban planner and public official who worked in the New York metropolitan area during the early mid-20th century, regarded as one of the most powerful and influential people in the history of New York City and New York State. The grand scale of his infrastructure projects and his philosophy of urban development influenced a generation of engineers, architects, and urban planners across the United States.
Who's the power broker today? I see Jerry Spire, right? The CEO of Tishman Spire.
Robert Moses was an extremely racist urban planner. Well, naturally, that's why PVD loves him.
He's the developer behind Rockefeller Center and other Manhattan projects, Lowe's Corporation, that family. Richard Kaufman, right, the New York original energy czar. You got Justin Driscoll, who is the CEO of New York Power Authority. Robert Feuderman, Kathy Wild. You're seeing some of these names, the power brokers. Does New York still run on the model as a Robert Moses? And if yes, who is the modern day Robert Moses of New York City?
No, it doesn't. And you have some good players, even Bill Rutan and the Rutan family. It doesn't. It doesn't have that one person. There was a different dynamics. And not only that, city charters, other laws have been put in place to prevent that centralization of one person that's going to have to agree or put their stamp on something. It doesn't exist. So all of those names that you mentioned, they're extremely influential. They are important to the flow of the city, but there's not one name you can mention to point out. I mean, you even have someone as the former mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, is extremely civically involved. He thinks it's very important for our city to be clean and safe. But if you were to say who's the Robert Moses of the day, that structure has been changed a lot because of the Robert Moses.
Is that a good thing?
I think it is. People should weigh in on what happens in their community.
People are chatting like he's extremely racist, like talking about how he designed roads with the intention of like keeping the swarthy city folk away from certain areas. And Eric Adams, like, he's just amazing.
He's
just awesome.
Adults
Love him.
weigh in. Robert Moses split up the Bronx with the Cross Bronx Expressway. They're still recovering from that.
He did split up the Bronx, true.
Impact.
Not in the way that he thinks, though.
Ways that he built throughout the city, really had an impact on neighborhoods. You think about the ones that he built. So I think it's imperative to have responsible involvement that does not slow down the evolution of a city.
So I pulled up and I said, okay, what are the top 5 things New Yorkers right now in New York City?
Yes.
What are the top 5 most important issues to them? This is what came up. Number one, affordability and cost of living.
Yep.
93% of New York voters say affordability is a critical crisis. 72% reporting stagnant family incomes.
Again, let's see if he repeats the talking point that he did earlier, but the only reason why Soren had got to campaign on that was because he's effectively solved crime. So that's the only thing left.
So that's one. Number two, housing and rent and development, median rents now are nearly $3,700 a month. Vacancy rates are at 1.4%, signaled by Mamdani proposal to freeze rent-stabilized rents. Okay, 51% support on that. You have number 3, crime and public safety, okay, which on multiple categories you've improved, and a couple categories you've declined. Taxes and economic policy, nearly 48% of 40%.
But I guess we're not going to get into those areas where he was on the decline for some reason.
Support raising taxes on corporations and the wealthy to fund the free transit and housing, but fear of backlash temper support. So we want it, but shit, if we do this, the billionaires could leave and they can go to Florida, right?
Right.
And then
they can't leave. That's not how commerce is actually. That's not how anything works in any economy in the United States. You don't actually have to be there to conduct business there,
transit and public service,
or be subject to like state and local taxes.
You see that as the 5 issues, and affordability, cost of living. Some of the challenges. How are you addressing each one of these?
So let's peel back that list. First, the affordability issue. I can't decrease the cost of bread, but I could put bread in your pockets. We put $30 billion back in the pockets of New Yorkers, paying off medical debt, the number one cause of bankruptcy in the city, reducing the cost of transit and reduce fare Metro cards. We just passed an extra tax initiative, no income tax for low-income New Yorkers, making sure we pick up the cost for high-speed broadband and public housing, paying the college tuition of foster care children, reducing the cost of child care from $220 a month to less than $20 a month. So if you see what we've done, we say, what's within our span of control? What can I do as mayor to bring down the dollars that everyday New Yorkers are spending? I'm not giving them broken promises, because the worst thing you could do when you grew up in poverty, the worst thing could happen to you.
This is like low on the priority list, that he's only thinking about getting to how do I help the average just working class of New York be able to afford living in this incredibly and increasingly ridiculously, doesn't New York have like one of the highest costs of living in the United States? Does New York City have the highest cost of living? Just globally. New York City is being regarded as one of the most expensive cities to live in globally, fueled by housing, the largest cost for most households. Okay? So this is not any secret, obviously. And yet he's only talking about getting to it in his second term if he wins. So just admitting that, the majority of your time as mayor, when you weren't being a fucking crook, was spent pandering to billionaires, getting their needs taken care of first, virtue signaling on public safety, and increasing police budgets that did not need to increase. And now you're going to get around to the whole economy thing, right?
Use something that they can't deliver. That's what's happening now, and that's unfair to do so. The free bus initiative, like you said, cost $3 billion. Mayors don't have the strength or the power to raise income tax on 1% of New Yorkers. We don't have that authority. So the promise that no, you don't have the authority.
We can't do it. Sorry.
To do so and not doing it while you are assemblyman who has the authority, it's just the wrong message.
Tax breaks and subsidies for billionaires always seem to be able to pull through on that one. But you wanted to be able to ride the public transit for a low cost, if not free. Sorry, I don't have the ability to like tax people now anymore. That would be socialism, to use taxes.
Now, when you look at the housing, each year, 3 years in a row, we built and renovated more affordable units in each independent year in the history of the city. In the history of the city each year. My housing projection is...
I wouldn't be surprised if that's not even hard to clear, because the majority of like New York City sprawl has already occurred. Where is there even space for them to be erecting new buildings and like housing building new housing?
More than 12 years of Bloomberg, 8 years.
That's why a lot of that's the criticism that I've seen about the housing proposals and the building proposals for New York City. It's like, where is it going to go? There has to be there has to be an area for them to build.
Blasio combined. Move more people out of homelessness into permanent housing in those individual years in the history of the city. Move more people into supportive housing in the history of the city. We have a voucher program that subsidizes rent for low-income New Yorkers. More people got those vouchers and were able to subsidize their rent in the history of the program. So we are doing it and making sure that we're not saying broken promises, because that's the worst thing that you can do. And we look at our subway system. You know, we have 4.6 million people that use our subway system a day. 4.6 million.
Crazy when you think about it.
Have 5 felonies a day on that system. Out of 4.6 million.
Is that an accurate number? Is that
yes,
real number?
Yes.
4.6 million use it daily, but only 5 felonies a day?
Exactly.
Wait,
we have 4.6 million people that use our subway system a day. 4.6 million.
Crazy when you think about it.
Have 5 felonies a day on that system. Out of 4.6 million.
Is that an accurate number? Is that real number?
Yes.
4.6 million use it daily, but only 5 felonies a day?
Exactly. Those police officers are...
Okay. 4.6 million people use the subway in New York. 5 felonies a day. It's like linking back to him. Attacks on the train, like a simple thing. So this was April 3rd, 2024. If I put felony. Well, you see, random acts of violence are not random anymore, but they are, because the numbers are saying that they are. You can't have 4.1 million people on the subway system and 6 felonies a day. That is a number we have to factor in. Do they, like, ever push back on it? Like, there's no, like... Okay, they do. We played the clip because we're saying they just said it doesn't feel safe. And as you know, just to bring up the stat, just to have you respond to it, 538 subway crimes between January 1st and March 31st. You said 6 felonies a day in the subway system, and you're saying it's not out of control. But what number would constitute being out of control? Well, clearly, if you have 4.1 million riders and you have 6 felonies a day on a system that of that vastness and close proximity, 1 is too many for me, and want to be clear on that. We don't want to dismiss 6 felonies that can take place on our system. But we can't take away from the increase in arrests by our police officers, the job they've been doing every day in keeping New Yorkers safe. It's like such a fucking self-report that to this guy, safety equals when you arrest people and put them in a cage. On quality of life issues and even fair evasion enforcement. So one cannot say, well, if you have 1,000 crimes a day, then you're out of control. I won't do that to New Yorkers. But if you go to the average New Yorker, one person told me we must have about 300 crimes a day in our system when we have 6 felony crimes a day on our system. So this is just vibes. This is not actually based on any data. He's just saying whatever the fuck he wants. A rate of 1.5, according to the New York Post, 1.5 violent felonies per million rides.
Working their butts off to keep that system safe. So where we have failed as an administration is that we have not effectively got our message out. I thought that, every elected official, you would take hits from the media. That's the business that we're in. And I thought that. I never thought we would take hits and also never get our story out. When I'm in town halls, community meetings, even when I sit down and talk to my son and do our wins list, you know what he tells me? He said, Dad, I didn't know that. I sit down and speak to knowledgeable people in the city, and they're not aware of how we turn the city around. So now for the next 3 months, I'm speaking.
Knowledgeable people equals his son.
Direct to the consumers, and I'm getting my message out.
I want to go deeper into this here because when you're saying about crime, what's happened, homicide is down 22% since 21. Shooting is down 40% since 21. Felony assault is up 29. Car theft is up 36%. Robbery is up 20%. Total infraction is up 28% in the crime category, the 34 crime categories. While I look at these numbers, so you can highlight the two good, which is what? Homicide down 22, shooting down 40, but the other four are up, right? Story comes out of NYPD. Rob, I don't know if you saw this. When we talked about this, I think last week it could have been. The number of police officers resigning in New York has skyrocketed. New York cops would flee the job in historic numbers if Zohran Mamdani win, union leaders predict. Not even this one, Rob.
Oh, no. I'm already sold on Mamdani. You don't need to keep showing me stuff like this to try to just get me more excited.
There's one that says how many are retiring. If you use the phrase retiring instead of resigning, retirement. Yeah, NYPD retiring. Maybe it's the same story. Go on the same story, see what numbers they put up, but I'll read this to you. Exactly, that's the one. That's the one, because of 1554, 941. If we can get that out of the way. There you go. So police officers are retiring historic numbers, and the exodus will only accelerate if anti-cop Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani is elected, and union officials warned this week. As of Monday, 1555 New York PD, NYPD police officers put in their papers 48% more than last year.
Dude, these are the biggest fucking babies known to man. Holy shit. Putting in for somebody who hasn't even been elected as mayor. He just won the primary.
49. Okay, who retired last year. That's a big number.
Yes.
And 65% more than a decade ago. Okay. When just 941 turned in their shields, according to NYPD data provided by the Post and Police Benevolent Association.
These are the people that have the Punisher logo on everything that they fucking own, acting like we're the thin blue line, we're the difference between chaos and fucking destruction or whatever, like safety and destruction. And then Mamdani wins again a primary race, and they're like, we can't fucking do this.
This is happening under your watch that they're doing that, and you're a guy that's a former captain. Now, some may say this is because of Mamdani. Some may say many other reasons, but I want to hear it from you. Why are so many cops choosing to retire and go elsewhere?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to go back over those numbers that you had. What time period was that you was
2021 to 2025. So the numbers I give you: homicide down 22%, shooting down 40%, felonies up, assault up 29, car theft up 36, robbery up 20, infractions up 28%. That's from 21 to 25.
Right. And that's not how you judge success in law enforcement. That's when I heard those numbers. I said something is wrong with that. What you do, you compare year over year. That is how you compare the Uniform Crime Report, the FBI report. You look at what happened one year and another year. And the reason you do that, because it's closer to the changes in those years. Back in 2021, you didn't have a full scope of bail reform. You didn't have raise the age where you were charging 16-year-olds no longer as adults when they do real criminal behavior. So there was a lot of things that happened back then.
Why would you charge them as an adult if they're a child?
They didn't have to deal with that we have to deal with now. When you compare year over year, which is normally how you do crimes, how are we in 24 compared to 25? The first 6 months of this year, those numbers are drastically down. We're moving in the right direction, even with a very soft criminal justice system where you know how hard it is to go to Rikers Island jail. You have to commit some serious crime.
Soft. This person thinks, again, Mr. Public Safety, I've fucking militarized the NYPD. I've increased budgets left and right. I've only, I believe in Rikers Island staying open, is saying that it's still too soft. It's still not enough.
I have a city council that is fighting to let anyone out with a crime to come through, and I have a state lawmaker. So when you compare year over year, you're seeing a real movement in the right direction. Not only did we have the lowest number of shootings and homicides in the history of the city, we took 22,000 illegal guns off our streets, 100,000 illegal vehicles that were being used for crimes. So we're moving in a direction and dealing with quality of life issues at the same time. And now your question, there was a question you asked.
The retirement, cops retirement. Right.
So when you look at it, back then we were having large classes. Cops now get to their 20-year period. Many of them are not staying longer. I stayed for 22 years. A lot of these younger cops don't want to stay longer. They have a different mindset. I was always thinking about overtime, make more money so I could, pay for my son's tuition, et cetera. Many of these cops are not doing that. This live-work balance is important to them. They hit 20 years. They say,
work-life balance.
Ready to go, ready to get out. Now, I have to match that. We're bringing 4,000 more cops to keep up with the attrition problem that we're having. Then when you add this anti-police energy that's out there, that you're hearing all across the country.
Then when you factor in how these protesters are hurting the feelings of cops or whatever, like, what are you talking about, dude? This anti-cop sentiment.
All across the country, they are struggling with having police officers come in. We're seeing now larger and larger classes because of what we've done. And I gave my police officers a fair contract.
Back in my day, we work ourselves to death and go home and beat our wives.
The PBA leaders, the SBA,
that's why we need the MAGA movement.
The other union leaders would tell you this mayor has been the fairest mayor we've ever had when it came down to ensuring that these police officers.
He said Eric Adams is fair.
For placing their lives on the line.
Yeah, and
Eric
I'd
is
be curious
fair.
to know what the number of cops we've had in New York City. This is wage increases 2017 up 2.25%, 2.53%, 3.25%, 3.5%, 4% bump that they're getting. So the entry level right now is what, 42 to 50? Is this for New York NYPD, Rob?
Yes,
That's
sir.
not a lot of money, man, to be a cop over there. That's
Yeah, but they bump, because it is the salary. After you go to the entry level, you go through the academy. We pay our officers while they're in the academy. And then once you get to your first year, you see a substantial increase in the salary by the time you get to your max.
Yeah, and okay, so around 4,400 now. Can you see historically, Rob, like how many? So if I look at 2000, peak staffing in 2000 for cops, NYPD was 40,000. 2005 was 36,300. 2020, it dropped to 34,000. 23 was 33,000 sworn officers with about 30 on patrol. Today, you're on 33 to 35. So even today, how much has New York City population increased from 2020? How much has New York?
About 200,000.
So not that much population increase from.
I remember looking it up a few years ago. Apparently, the overwhelming majority of cops that actually work and service in New York City can't even afford to live there, so they don't actually live within the city limits. They have to live elsewhere so they can and then commute to work.
2000 to today.
But if those are the salaries and the AI summary that they pulled up was accurate, that is abysmal. That's like a teacher's salary.
Curious to know what the population's increased from 2000 to today. But if you look at that, you had 7,000 more cops in 2000 in New York City than we do today.
Right.
Okay, and that's 25 years later. In 2000, the population was 8 million. Roughly now it's 8.5 million. So it's increased 5,000. So 500,000. So 500,000, say it's increased 6%. It's increased 6%, but the number of cops has decreased roughly 20%.
Right.
Okay, give or take. So do you see that correlation on some of the crime that's taking place in New York because it's got 7,000 fewer cops today than it had 25 years ago, and population has increased 500,000?
Yeah, and think about it for a moment. Again, when I came in to the police department, we had large classes. I think my class was over 2,000.
Holy shit.
No, we had large classes. Those large classes back then, they hit their 20 years. You see, they retire. Those are big classes. So you're seeing big classes hit their 20 years. And what you're finding, in addition to that, we were hemorrhaging cops that were going to different municipalities that were paying them better. And so I knew I had to get in and sat down with the president of the union, Pat Lynch at the time, and say, I have to stop the hemorrhaging of my officers because they're not getting salaries that are comparable. And we were able to fix that. And also there was a morale issue. We were coming through
morale
through a time
issue.
when there was a lot of marching in the street, a lot of anti-police energy that was
It's
going.
been really hard for the NYPD ever since it was deemed unconstitutional to stop and frisk young black men that they profiled.
The police officers did not feel
Jobs just not the same like it used to be.
Went into battle to save a city that we were not supporting
That's
them.
right.
And I had to change that energy to let them know, you do your job, we're going to be here
And I think
to
you did
support
that.
you.
And just so you know, I support that. We watched it and we loved it because, I love New York. I'm a minority owner of the Yankees. When I go there and I go to a game, I don't want to, I take my entire family. We took 50 guys to a game last week. And so when we go there, we're by the chairman's, by Steinbrenner Suite right next to him. We're about everybody.
Nice.
We love the city. It's a special place.
Right.
You like going to the restaurants. You like experiencing the whole thing. I love hearing you saying the Broadway, numbers are up the last 12 months. But the one thing I would say is when I'm looking at this and I see what cities are lowering the number of cops the most and which one's increasing, like if I look at decrease, New York is number one.
Right.
Just
After this show, is PBD reading something for the first time and somehow working it into a cultural issue? You must be new here. He does like no prep for any of his guests.
The number of cops on how much fewer they have. New York, Delaware, Idaho, Maine, Louisiana all have decreased. Montana, Connecticut, Rhode Island have increased the number of cops. I think that would be something to consider. Now, let me go into the next conversation. Next question I got with you with the city is the following. Permits.
Okay, but like these Connecticut and Rhode Island increasing the number of cops, how do you mean? That could mean anything from like a non-zero amount is like increasing the amount of cops that you have. But per like 1,000 or 100 people or whatever, do they now have like a double or triple what they used to have? Probably not. That's what he's talking about. He wants to get like 7,000 more cops on the street.
When you look at real estate, okay, and you go to roads, and one thing when you're driving around New York, there's a lot of unfinished projects that are kind of sitting around. And when you look at why, like right now, California, it's a worst time to be Newsom. No matter how much he tries to spin it, what he's going through in his state, with all the stuff that's going on with the Palisades, what happened, Malibu, out of all the homes that went through it, I think only 6 have been rebuilt. And only 14% have permits to start rebuilding. So think about the permit issue that's taking place in California. You got it as well. When you look at New York City, and I wonder how much of this you can do something about, or it's got to be a governor, like a bigger position than you. The number of highways, over 60% of the highways were built after 1970 in New York City. They're built past their expected lifespan, most of these. So when they build it, they're like, look, this is good to be for 40 years, 50 years, but you guys are kind of playing with fire right now, right?
Talking about building code reform now? That's not going to happen.
The Department of Transportation says over 200 city bridges are structurally deficient as of 2024, okay? The Brooklyn Queen Expressway.
Like infrastructure or whatever. The thing that he doesn't give a shit about, he's not going to touch.
One of them, some of these other ones. Then I said, I'm curious, the average highway compared
to... I'm always value-tained when I'm watching Patrick Bet David.
Other cities. In New York City, it's 60 to 80 years, the average age. LA is 40 to 60 years. Houston is 30 to 50 years. Chicago is 50 to 7 years. You have the oldest, and when you look at these numbers, like the oldest of the oldest. Then, when you go to the cost, okay, slowest and the most expensive construction timelines in the world. It takes 2 to 4 years compared to some other places, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months. To build a mile bridge in your area, the average subway extension in New York City, not bridge, subway extension, $2.5 billion.
But wouldn't you expect this? Isn't New York City one of the most densely populated areas in the entire how dense is New York City? I'm sure it could be improved, but there's to a certain extent that's always going to be a kneecap to it. New York City is the most densely populated major city in the United States with a density of approximately 27,000 people per square mile. It's actually a little bit more. 29,000 per square mile.
$3.5 billion per
So
mile.
you would expect that it's expensive because it's slow. And it's slow,
compared to Paris, it's only $500,000 per mile. Seoul is $300 million per mile, $120 per mile in Madrid. You're 5 to 7 times more than Paris.
Again, how maybe Paris is very dense. How dense is Paris's population? Oh no, it's very, very dense. Okay, 20,000 per square kilometer. But it also just looks so differently. I mean, the idea that you're gonna be able to convert New York City to have the urban planning of a place like Paris or Madrid, which are way more people friendly cities, is not gonna happen.
So people are sitting there saying, hey man, we cannot have our city that's the city, the headquarters, financial capital. But then where do you get the money from? How do you fund this? Who do you work with? How do you get construction companies to work? How do you put the incentive for people to say, I want to clean up the roads? And it takes such a long time to go through this. How do you manage all of this stuff when it comes down to updating your roads? Because all it takes is one bad accident with a bridge, one bad accident with that, and then that's a big story everyone's talking about.
Without a doubt. And as you
Not really. Didn't there a bridge collapse in Baltimore? I feel like that was a story for 2 weeks and then everybody moved on.
Mentioned the BQE.
And the bigger thing was that somebody called him like a DEI mayor, which was like a pretty flimsy way of just calling it like the black mayor of like mayor governor of Baltimore, fucking like the N-word.
Problems that was kicked down the road for years. I had and invited Secretary Duffy.
A ship hit. Oh, that's what happened. It didn't just crumble. A ship hit it. That's true.
Secretary of Transportation to come and walk with me and see the BQE and the erosion, because those type of large projects, we need help and sign off also from the federal government. And so when you look at some of the roads that you mentioned in the bridges, some is under city, state, and federal. And we need a combination of those things. And when I ran for office, I stated that it takes too long and with too much bureaucracy to get things done. And remember, while I was brought up on
Eric Adams comes out in support of the abundance agenda. I love it.
I was saying to the FDNY, go goddamn inspect the building. If you're going to pass it or fail, and that's up to them. But at least go in and do the inspection. I was hearing on the campaign trail from building owners who was telling me, Eric, to get a fire inspection, it takes years. And it was my mindset that we have to speed up the bureaucracy, because if I have a building
how are we doing this story again?
Developing a skyscraper, and
you already told it.
To wait to get an inspection, and they have a 200-man crew that they're paying for every day. It just hurts business, and here's why. The whole concept of government is a flawed concept in the manner in which, if you don't incentivize...
Don't you just love when the mayor of New York City says he actually is like ideologically opposed to the idea of a fucking government, or that it's inherently flawed?
Advise the action. If I have a person who opened a hotel paying $35,000 a month in rent, yet they can't have someone come in and turn on their gas and turn on their electricity, or come and give them a CFO for an inspection, and no one is incentivizing. If government is saying, I'm getting my salary if I open you or not, that's wrong. I started judging our agencies based on the end product. How many restaurants did we open? Not how many citations did you issue? How many building permits did we approve? We have to incentivize government and judge based on the end product, because
how much control do you have to accelerate the speed of permitting? Is that influence on you? At what level is somebody able to accelerate the speed of people getting permits?
Exactly. Yeah, we should actually rush inspections for building in the like one of the most densely populated areas that we have, because there's never any reason for that to fail. That definitely is not going to go wrong.
Part of the problem is the permanency of government. You know, many people, who don't want to see this productivity, those who are in government, they have a mindset, we'll wait you out. You're here for what, 4 years, 8 years? I've been here for 35 years. I've been here for 35 years.
Sure. Yeah.
So when you go in and you put your folks at the top, and we have modernized many of our systems. I have a great chief technology officer. A lot of this stuff you could use real good artificial intelligence technology. Should not have to go through this long series of interactions. That's what we're attempting to do. So in 3.5 years, we've modernized a lot. But at the same time, remember, I had to go to those top issues: building and housing, making the city safe.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, can the campaign be that we're going to go through
if he cares about building houses and bringing down the costs of living for New Yorkers, this is definitely the first I've heard of it. He spent way more time on his campaign talking about ending anti-Semitism and just like talking shit about Zoran.
That are taking so long to get approved because 9 people need to sign off. And here's what we're doing moving forward. Moving forward, we're going to split the time for campaign because we need to approve the bridges to be rebuilt. Boom, 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 boom. Enough of the buildings that are not being built. People are sitting on the sidelines, and one of the reasons why it's not is permitting. What can be a direct statement that you can make to accelerate people getting permits?
Modernizing our system so we don't have all those layers, and that's what
How do you do that?
We're doing that now.
This is just another way of saying deregulation.
Commissioner Jimmy Otto, former borough president, my chief technology officer, Matt Frazier, we're going in and looking at all of these systems, and we're asking the question, do we need all of these layers? For example, before becoming mayor, we would do something called stop work orders because there's a problem on a job site. Mm-hmm. What we've learned, there could be a problem with the carpentry, has nothing to do with the electricity or dealing with the painters or what have you. So why are we stopping the whole job? Let's stop the part of the job that's the issue. And now to get us stop.
I don't know anything about urban planning. I don't know anything about building codes or anything but I'm not inclined to defer to Eric Adams' assessment of the way that you should go about construction. If building code mandates that you need to stop construction on the entire project because there's a serious issue with one or more aspects of a project that you're currently is currently under construction or whatever, I'm inclined to believe that's not just to slow down because the government just loves putting up red tape, that there's actually a reason behind it that's informed by some sort of safety protocol. But what the fuck do I know? I'm just so skeptical of everything this motherfucker says.
Order of a whole job, you have to get sign off from the hierarchy of the building department. My contractors said, Eric, this was a home run for us because they were holding up our job.
As he's saying it should be like this, I mean, if I'm relying on the AI summary, the order can either be full, halting all work, or partial, restricting work in specific areas. So the thing that he's talking about, I'm going to revolutionize the way that we do stop work orders, is a thing that already exists. The nuances for it already allow for you to restrict it in specific areas without stopping the entire project.
And that's the same thing we're looking at with building permits and other types of permits as well.
Yeah, I would, Rob, where is New York City in the speed of permits of all the cities in America? Are you guys known as one of the slowest? Would you say New York City?
I would say yes, because we have so many rules and regulations that were put in place. That was put in place not only by the agencies, but safety rules and regulations that were put in place by laws and rules and
Is
proposals.
this a permits, Rob? Is it zoning permits?
I believe so.
He's trying to suggest, I don't know if he wanted to suggest that corporate interests are behind zoning regulations, which they're clearly not. Or was he suggesting that safety teams, people that had the public interest in mind when they were constructing these, so that the infrastructure would not be unsafe or crumble very quickly after it's made, or so you don't fucking cut corners because you want to get the job done as quickly and cheaply as possible.
Look at this.
Yes.
Look at this. New York City, 2 to 4+ years. Time for approval, building restriction, very high zoning reviews, landmark. You got Houston's.
Again, you would expect this. There's no zoning laws in Houston. They have these shitty things called fucking ordinances. You do not want your city to look like Houston. That's it's saying okay, look, the fastest wait times or whatever, the restrictions in fucking Houston, where nobody even wants to sprawl, even though there's more room. Because it sucks to live in Houston. It's the worst planned city globally.
0 to 6 months. By the way, Houston just became the number 3 city in America. They passed up Chicago. I believe they did.
And all of these places, Los Angeles has high building restrictions because they are the majority of their sprawl already occurred in the 60s and the 70s. So there's very, very few space left to begin with.
Yes. If not, they're now Austin 6 to 12 months. That's where everybody's moving right now. Mm-hmm. You got Musk is there a bunch.
And even if it were very, very low, it would just be for unaffordable luxury condos and high rises that the average New Yorkers he says he cares about wouldn't be able to afford it, wouldn't be accessible or affordable.
Guys, even LA is 1 to 2 years. Miami is years. Chicago's 12 months. You guys are 2 to 4 years.
Now let's break that down for a moment because
let's see if he defends it or if he complains, because now he's in the position where he just bitched about zoning regulations and the laws slowing down commerce, taking it too long, bureaucracy, red tape, etc. Now he's coming under fire and it's why does it take so long? Suddenly there's going to be the nuanced case for why, here's why my hands are tied, or here's why they need to be there.
Solution to it also. We have all of these different procedures that community groups, like the community board, must sign off. There's a lot of layers. That's how ULURP.
I remember that. Building codes is one of the major things that Joe Rogan supports. Dave Rubin thought it was useless. Rogan actually wrecked him over it. His dad works construction or something. Yeah, because he was construction workers want to build something that they're proud of. You don't need all this red tape, zoning laws and building codes and all this bullshit regulation. Joe Rogan was yeah, you do, because these people are they can be incentivized to cut corners, get jobs done very, very quickly. You need to make sure that they're there so they're not just doing whatever.
The uniform land use process. So what did we do this year? We put an amendment on the ballot that will cut that time down to a year. Voters must vote on it now. We had an entire, what we call, a review committee come in and look at how we modify the proposal to do this, everything from zoning to reviews to landmark to rules. That's what's on the ballot right now that people will be voting on. So New Yorkers must determine that, hey, we no longer want to go through this lengthy process. We knew it was a problem, and that's why we put this ballot amendment on the ballot.
I think this is very big because, You know, and that's why I ask you.
New Yorkers must determine it, as if the people, New Yorkers, top on their priority is making sure that building code regulations don't have so much red tape or whatever. This is obviously something that is like a corporate interest, like almost exclusively.
You said, did Duffy end up coming in, or he never came?
No, he came. We walked through together. He
Okay.
spent a couple hours.
That's
with
good.
me.
Adam is lying out his ass. I'm in construction. There's a reason why New York has such long permit processes. The city is tightly packed. There's a massive process to make sure you aren't going into someone's property. All the underground they have there is extensive, and the electrical grid is very complicated. Not to mention their water level and the groundwater is always a problem. They don't want contractors coming in building apartments that sink into the ground 5 years later. Okay, all of that sounds compelling. I know that you have like subject area expertise, but have you ever considered that it would be an awesome virtue signal for Eric Adams to suggest that building code, like inspections, regulations, all of that just exists to oppress the poor billionaires that want to build luxury high rises? And wouldn't you know it, he also has a solution for it that is bought and paid for by a corporate interest that lobbied him to get it onto the fucking ballot.
He's the right guy. So if he came in and
They're acting like, again, like you would expect these sorts of regulations to exist in a city. This is densely populated as New York City and as tightly packed as far as infrastructures and building goes. Like, where are you going to build in New York? Of course, that's going to take a long time to decide if you like for that process to go through. It's a huge city and everybody wants to move there and everybody wants to set up commerce there.
This is a big investment for the city.
Yes.
And to show that you can collaborate with the existing administration and get a level of commitment from them that if you get elected, so strategically for me would be if all of a sudden you get a President Trump to say, hey, I love New York City. If you guys go and support Mayor Adams, we're going to be involved as a federal government to help come clean up New York because I love that place. I grew up in that place, but there's no way we're doing that if Mamdani. If there's something like that to be said, and I know he's aggressively not a fan of what Mamdani is doing, but I think this would be very big to me. Let me go to the second one concern that I have on seeing how you're handling this. Business. When it comes down to business-friendly places for startups, I know you said earlier that a lot of younger engineers are coming in and, you were mentioning what's happening with that last couple of years. When you think about taxes, if you look at business tax-friendly climate, okay, by ranking, I don't know if this is ranked. I think that's alphabetical, Rob. But,
Please show like another ChatGPT screen. I need it.
Find a ranking. You can put that bigger. Okay. And I'll still be able to see the ranking there if you can zoom in a little bit. Okay, overall, go to the overall rank.
Find a real image for once.
And California is 48. Okay, California used to be 50.
I wouldn't be surprised if the source is ChatGPT, but we're at least moving past an AI summary and looking at a data set.
The way. Go all the way down to New York. You'll see New York is now 49th. And the only one that's behind them is Jersey. Okay? The worst place for business, all in. So let's look at the 5 rankings, Rob, if you can go all the way to the top. For corporate tax rate, let's see where New York ranks, okay? Corporate tax rate, New York is a little bit lower, Rob, I can't see it, 24th. Okay. Second one, you're 50th. What's 50th? Let's go see what's up there. Individual income tax rank. Holy shit, you guys are the worst. 50th. Okay, sales tax rank, New York, and again, we're saying state, but you're running
Eric's awfully quiet right now.
Mayor, so I want to make sure that distinction. You got 42. Then what's the next one? 49.
Suddenly not much to say, and the report is evaporated when, even though PBD is not doing a good job of like illustrating whatever point he's trying to make, which is that, yeah, compared to other cities, there's like high taxes.
Go to the next one to see what that is. Property tax, 49th. Unemployment insurance tax rank is, where's New York at with that? Okay, we got 39th. Okay. Why would someone choose to build a small business and stay in New York City rather than going and building it in Nashville, Tennessee, in Brentwood, in, Fort Lauderdale, in Boca, in Miami, in Orlando, in Jacksonville, in Plano, in Prosper? Why would somebody stay in New York if the tax climate, the regulation, the safety, why would someone stay in New York or even go to New York?
Well, one reason only.
This whole like small business owners are the ones that are getting work permits and opening like physical businesses located in New York City is already a bizarre premise. That's not what's happening. But like, again, they are both operating under the assumption. Well, like Adams is lying about it. I don't know if PBD is. I assume he's just too stupid to realize this, that again, you do not need to be geographically situated in New York City to be subject to regulatory taxes. Your headquarters does not have to actually be there. You can be a business and do business in New York City while being entirely remote. Just need an LLC.
When you look at what I hear all the time from my business leaders, the talent, the diversity of talent, when you look at the population, New York City
So
is
non-answer, and we're pivoting to talking about like how beautiful New York is or something.
considered the largest Ukrainian population, one of the largest Chinese population, largest Spanish-speaking population, largest Indian population. That diversity of culture also allows you the diversity of creativity. And what you find in New York, one of the best transportation systems to get anywhere in the city, your workers can get anywhere in the city on a small fraction of a cost. You don't need a vehicle. Outside in our outer boroughs, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, you can find at home this quality of the schools. Because whenever someone attracts their employees, there's two questions that they ask. How good are the schools? How safe is the community? So when you bring down crime and you have...
Whenever somebody attracts employees?
The schools. Because whenever someone attracts their employees, there's two questions that they ask. How good are the schools? How safe is the community? So when you bring down crime...
What do those two have to do with each other? What? I don't understand the point you're trying to make. He's making it sound like constituents answer to employees.
To attract that talent, and particularly young people. Young people, their entire life.
Maybe it's just like my brain is so cooked or whatever, but like...
Not sitting at an office desk. Matter of fact, many of them not. They want to have a nightlife. They want to have a place that they could engage and meet other young people in a very realistic way. So I think it has a lot to do with the attractiveness of the city and all that it has.
Yeah, and by the way, one thing we know for a fact, because right now the candidates that are still in it is Cuomo's still in it, right? He hasn't stepped down yet, so he's still in it. Mamdani's still in it. Yourself and a Republican.
Still gonna name Mamdani second, even though he won.
I always get his last name right. Sliwa, right? Curtis Sliwa.
You got it right.
And what's his percentage? Where is he at? Sliwa, what percentage does he have?
Wait till PBD finds out that Sliwa is like an anti-Trump guy, or at the very least a Trump critic.
Do we know?
It moves, these polls move all over the place,
Trying to see where
the polls are very fake. You can't trust them. Fake news.
So right, this is shown. This is from who?
This is from Slingshot Strategies.
Yes. You trust Strings? Is this a trusted source?
Well, let's go here. When I ran in 2021, Slingshot Strategies.
And how unprepared are you that you don't even have a poll to reference that has you at like polling very well or above Mamdani or something?
Strategies basically said I can't stand a chance against Andrew Yang. But we're not calling Andrew Yang mayor, right?
No, we're calling you mayor. So this has Mamdani at 35%,
right.
Cuomo at 25%, Sliwa at 14%, and it only has you at 11%.
Right.
Are we just laughing at like xenophobia and like racism? Like, oh, when I think New York, I don't think Asian people. Therefore, why would I vote for Andrew Yang?
Right. I think that when I ran in 2021, they had me in 4th place. Also, they had me behind I think Scott Stringer, someone else, and Andrew Yang. So. These polls have a history of not knowing my voters. My voters, they're not calling for polling. And the goal is going to be a combination of registering new voters.
Wouldn't be surprised if at this point his voters are practically non-existent. He's heading into... maybe that's the calculation that's being made. Maybe the establishment is not worried that the vote is going to be split between Cuomo and Eric Adams, because Eric Adams is running as an independent. He has less name recognition than Andrew Cuomo, just objectively. Marred with more scandals, even if you do know who he is. But he doesn't, I don't know that the people that support Cuomo, maybe those are the same people that would support Mamdani before they support, like, Andrew or Eric Adams.
Which is crucial to this race, and that's what Mamdani did. He was successful in registering new voters, and for the first time telling my story. I'm just starting campaigning, And once I'm able to tell my story, communicate with voters in an authentic way, we know on Victory Day, the only poll that matters is the poll that said you won.
I agree. If Mamdani wins, okay, this is a big if, but let's just say if Mamdani wins. And by the way, formidable guy. People cannot just think it's not going to happen. Like, sometimes in elections, how people say, oh, it's a slam dunk, it's going to be done. Or like, wait a minute, what? The guy won? Yes, he did. If Mamdani wins, what happens to New York City?
Well, first of all, and I agree with you about...
Turns into London, as PBD said. I think he literally tweeted out.
Andrew Yang was walking around with a tape measure, measuring the drapes of City Hall. He just knew he was going to be the mayor. I knew differently because I know this city. And I think that...
Dude, you don't know shit, bitch. What you know is that Andrew Yang did not do very well in the presidential run that he tried to do with the Democrats. So is it really that surprising that even when he tries to go local and do it with New York City, he's not able to see electoral success like he'd need to?
If his policies are put in place,
I do feel like him being like, I know New York, he's never going to win. This is just like a dog whistle from Eric Adams. I think he's saying Even though he just said that there's a large, non-insignificant portion of New York City that is comprised of like Asian Americans, Chinese immigrants, etc., and Chinese Americans. Like, oh, Andrew Yang doesn't fit the city. It's like, are you just saying that because he's Asian?
Policies are put in place
specifically.
And no matter who a candidate is, if you have those policies that are put in place, you're going to
only had one policy I knew of: democracy dollars, aka UBI.
Hurt small business. That's a real issue with our small businesses. We have 700,000 small landlords. It's going to hurt them if they can never raise rent, although rent rolls are not meeting the repair.
It's gonna the poor landlords if they can't raise the rent.
Communities, because buildings are going to fall into disrepair. We saw this before in the 70s and 80s when rent rolls were not reaching what it costs to run a building. He's going to hurt public safety. Defunding police. He just announced the other day he's not going to send police officers to.
Okay, but he did not announce defund the police.
Respond to domestic violence issues.
Rent is famously so low, especially in a city that is deemed to be one of the most expensive cities internationally.
Officer Mora and Rivera, 2 officers that died in the beginning of my administration, they were going to a domestic violence call. One of the most dangerous calls a police officer can go on is a domestic violence call.
Is that true?
You send civilians there?
Is a DV call one of the most dangerous calls that a police officer go on? Okay. This is according to CNN. Domestic incident, this is published in 2022, highly dangerous for police officers. Two New York police officers were shot, one of them fatally, inside a Harlem department on Friday, while responding to a domestic disturbance call, one of the most dangerous circumstances for police, experts say. Officer Jason Rivera died from injuries, while 27-year-old Wilbert Mora remains in critical condition. According to data in the FBI's law enforcement officers killed and assaulted, or LEOCA database, 503 officers nationwide were feloniously killed between 2011 and 2020. So over a 9-year period, you had 503 officers. So this might be the most dangerous incident, but it's a low probability event to begin with. During that period, 43 officers were feloniously killed while responding to domestic disturbances or domestic violence calls. According to the FBI, 14 officers were feloniously killed when they encountered a domestic incident after arriving at the scene. The 43 officers who were killed while responding to domestic disturbance or violence calls accounts for roughly 8.5% of the total number of officers killed between 2011 and 2020. Last year, we saw the highest number of law enforcement officials who were intentionally killed in the line of duty since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001.
You are putting their lives in jeopardy.
So it's like technically the most dangerous situation, but in general, it's like it's still unlikely to happen.
It's public safety to empty out Rikers Island when you have some of the most dangerous criminals that are there. If they're on Rikers Island, when you look at many of his projects, that he's put in place, the policies are going to hurt New Yorkers, and it's going.
I thought he was going to say it's going to hurt white people because of that one policy that he has, where he's like, yeah, the tax policy is going to end up targeting neighborhoods that are richer and whiter.
Hurt low-income New Yorkers, working-class New Yorkers, those who he represent.
Did you see this young lady who was a former
young lady?
Oh my God, Rob, do you have that clip? I would just love for the audience to see this. Do you know who she is, or you don't know?
I don't.
Okay, play this clip, Rob. Go for it. So
New York City just nominated this guy, Zohran Mamdani, who is a socialist, to represent them for the mayor's election. And if I was 25, I would be obsessed with Zohran. When I was 25, I was actually 26, 27, I helped get AOC elected. I made a video for her campaign that went super viral. I met her a ton of times, and I was a huge AOC person. Now I'm 35, and like every stereotypical person, I've grown up, and I've learned that these feel-good politics of promising free food, free college, free apartments, like you get free, you get free, you get free. It feels so good. You feel as a young person when your frontal lobe is not fully developed, and you're thinking more in black and white, that this is going to be good, right? You're indoctrinated as a young person in America to believe that capitalism is bad and all your problems are because of these evil business owners. But
yeah, a huge prevailing attitude in the United States is that capitalism is bad. This is certainly a mainstream opinion and openly embraced by the majority of the political establishment in both parties, of course, because it's such mainstream thought that you're indoctrinated to believe.
I have to warn young people who are caught up in the Mamdani vibe is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we've seen time and time again in countries and cities that adopt these socialist programs is that the rich people who are going to pay for them are going to leave because of the high taxes. And
yeah, Sweden, Denmark, all the Nordic countries, they're just doing terribly because they've adopted all of these policies that and robust civic infrastructure that help support their citizens. Yeah, they're doing terribly.
We just get more taxes and less for it. And one example of this on a smaller scale is in New York.
Is she some like grifter or something like that? Or like AOC turned MAGA grifter? Is that her whole shtick? I wouldn't be surprised if I go on her TikTok and like she starts the majority of her videos with, I used to work with AOC. As somebody who used to support AOC. As somebody who once met AOC.
In 2019,
gives conservative
there was a law that was passed by the state house, all Democrats, to pause rent hikes on rent stabilized apartments. So they can no longer rent hike. So say, for example, an apartment is rent stabilized. It's had the same tenant since the 1970s. It comes up for rent. Landlords, because of this law, can only raise the rent by 2%. So say in 1970, someone was paying $200 a month.
Think of the poor landlords.
You're now going to be paying $220 a month in 2025. But the problem is that rent stabilized apartment needs to be renovated and brought up to 2025 code. So because of this law, what's happened is now there are tens of thousands of empty apartments in New York that are rent stabilized that the landlords are not renovating because they know they cannot make their money back if they renovate them. And again, these landlords are not like evil people. And when you're indoctrinated.
Citation needed. The funny thing is that like she talks about how like you're indoctrinated to hate capitalism. Okay, what you're describing is a market failure. So why is there like such a big market failure? Is it because they're financially incentivized to buy properties, buy lots of land, just sit on it, wait till it increases in value, and then they flip it and sell it to somebody? Sometimes they don't even do that. They just sell it because it's treated like a speculative asset in this country instead of like a basic human right or housing or like a right that people have.
Into this sort of leftist, oppressed mindset. You think like business owners are evil. They're not.
True.
Many of them are small.
Wrong.
Businesses, they're working on a margin.
To be a small business owner, your business could have less than 500 employees. It's like 500 or less. That's considered like a small business, by the way.
So it's not affordable for them to.
Right, how do you
powerful
seriously?
Yes,
what a powerful TikTok from somebody who's clearly grifting and making up shit as she goes along. I don't even know what the point of that story was supposed to be. We're supposed to blame anti-capitalist leftists for loving building codes and opposing like housing or liking rent stabilization, and they're just going after these the poor unfairly maligned landlords who just want to become millionaires by doing nothing but engaging in rent-seeking behavior.
Idealism collides with realism. Running a city is realism. And
wow, profound. I bet a lot of people were really touched when they heard him say that.
We should be ideal. We should have hope. We should think about positivity of the future, and that's what we believe in. But running a city, you have to make tough choices. And if you start saying a small property owner, 700,000 we have in our city, that you could never raise the rent, what happens is working class people will see the quality of their housing go down.
Oh, okay. So that's how it works. Again, if you don't let landlords squeeze you for everything that you're worth, then it's actually going to get worse for you. I know you thought it couldn't possibly get worse, but it could, because scary things like your rent not being able to be increased very, very rapidly because your landlord feels like they can, that might start to go away.
Before, where you had landlords walking away from their properties, creating terrible environments. And so what she just stated is that we should all remain optimistic. We should all have hope. We should all, want great things, But I lived in poverty. I didn't study it in school, in academic elitists that never experienced.
So that means, I got it from the streets or whatever.
Meal cramps don't really know what it's like. And so just think about your journey. They look at you now.
They're so oppressed. They're the most oppressed class.
Everybody's looking at you right now. This is your glory. It's not your story. It's not your story.
Wow,
and
bars.
When people see just your glory.
This is your glory, not your story.
And don't realize your story. Growing up dyslexic was painful for me, undiagnosed until I got to college. Growing up on the verge of homelessness, my mom we used to line up at the door. There was sick.
Oh, I don't know where that came out of. It just kind of came out of left field. He's talking about having dyslexia, and it's like, damn, if only your school was funded more, maybe they could have had a diagnostician on site and actually gave you some intervention earlier or diagnosed you and treated you for dyslexia and given you accommodations.
plastic
He's
bag.
like, these people don't understand what it's like to be poor. Like, starts to describe like the side effects of poverty or whatever, but then has no solution for like getting at the root cause of the issue. Or all of it, literally, like all of his proposals, which I wouldn't be surprised if he's like in favor of like privatizing schools or whatever, would literally exacerbate the problems that he grew up with and is complaining about.
Full of clothing, change of clothing for the day, because she thought we were going to come home and we were going to be thrown out. I used to turn that corner and my stomach would have butterflies in it because I would be humiliated when the marshals were out there.
He's got that old man ramble. It's what he does the best, man.
A U-Haul truck on the block, I was like, darn it, they throwing us out. That makes
like, even if I thought that this candidate, let's pretend I could like wipe the slate clean and he has no scandal or anything like that, I do not know how this man won. He is so weird. He is so uninteresting. He's not charismatic, and he is a moron.
Think about what people are going through. And so when you live the luxury life, the reason he thinks about giving everything away for free is because he got everything for free.
Was he raised with a silver spoon in his mouth?
Yes, and I was an actress. His dad was an academic person. This academic elitism is not how you run a city, and I think she pointed it out well.
Wow, I agree. This economic elitism is not how you run a city. Correct, Eric Adams. Welcome to the resistance.
Her story.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. She would be somebody I'd bring on the team if I was you. Right. I'd find out who it is, and I would, matter of fact, maybe reach out to them, get a hold of the camp and speak with them. In regards to Mamdani in New York, so New York City, 9/11, a day we'll never forget, right?
Yes.
You definitely won't forget because
I was a lieutenant at the time.
Why are we bringing up 9/11 in the context of checks notes? Oh, got it. Muslim man wins Democratic primary. That's why we have to bring up 9/11.
You were a lieutenant?
I keep hearing people repeat this. Like Nancy Mace tweeted this out
at the time.
Yes.
Like, guess people forgot 9/11 just because a Muslim guy won.
My brother was a sergeant. I went down to Ground Zero that night, and that was a site that really tore us apart. You know,
it was one of those days that we'll never forget for the rest of our lives. Here's Bill Ackman posting something about Mamdani's father. Okay, and he says the Zohran Mamdani, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, okay?
So now we're at the point where we're not even pulling up statements or comments that Zohran Mamdani himself has made. We are pulling up things that his father has said, absent any context, in academic writing. And we're going to attribute this to him for some reason. Even though, again, I'm open to this argument, but you have to draw a direct line as to why the thing you're bringing up that was said by somebody else that's not him, even if it's a parent, even if it's somebody related to him, can you demonstrate how it may have influenced something that he said or done today? No? Then shut the fuck up. All you're doing is talking about their parents' body of work.
These are words from his father, a current...
Like, I can explain to you how Kamala Harris's brother had an impact on her 2024 election campaign. I don't know that I'm going to find the relationship that exists between Zohran Mamdani's father, who's a Columbia professor, saying something on page 432 that, like, is probably... like, what are we doing here?
Professor at Columbia, okay, a school he tried to go to, where on his application he said he's African-American, black, and Asian, okay? Rob, if you can click on the picture so I can just read it. Clearly, the prime objective of suicide bombers is not to terminate his or her own life, but that...
Zohran Mamdani's Indian, grew up in Uganda. The fuck does that have to do with 9/11? Oh, because he exists as a Muslim man.
...of others defined as enemies. We need to recognize the suicide bomber first and foremost as a category of soldier. Does not the suicide bomber join both aspects of our humanity, particularly as it has been fashioned by political modernity in that we are willing to subordinate life...
You mean political modernity? Yeah.
Both our own
modernity
and that of others, two objectives...
I need like a soundboard to get some of these as drops.
We consider higher than life. Suicide bombing needs to be understood as a feature of modern political violence rather than stigmatized as a mark of barbarism. The danger of moral discussion of itself, how can any culture condone suicide, is that it quickly turns into a replay of culture talk, stereotyping, et cetera, et cetera. You read this.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting. Yes. How do you process this?
Well, and that, I think that's what's important in this election. Because you and I both know that there are difference of opinions, how people view life and how they see life.
Sure.
And your
everyone's
difference
different,
of opinion doesn't make you good or bad. It's just we think differently.
Eric Adams comes out as a moral relativist on the PBD podcast.
I don't support that. And it's the reason I don't support it doesn't mean there's not going to be others that support it.
Again, I love how we have this like very laissez-faire attitude about like, hey, we don't need a purity test. Just because you disagree with me on something does not mean that you hate everyone or whatever, when earlier he was like, Zoran Mamdani wants to personally open every single cell at Rikers Island, let every single criminal out, and they're going to come to your house and kill you personally after, and then they're going to expropriate your property. But then by the end, it's like, you guys, can't we just all get along? Sometimes we have genuine policy disagreements, and that doesn't make one person or the other like evil. Who's to say who's right and wrong? Amazing.
But the question we need to ask as New Yorkers right now, does the majority of New Yorkers support that? Or does the majority of New Yorkers believe suicide bombings are terrorists, that Hamas is a terrorist group, that not calling or stating global infidata is...
Oh my God, why is this so hard for everyone to say? Fucking Lindy Lee did the same thing. She said fucking globalize infidata. Globalize the intifada. They're like, he can't even remember the talking points. He can't even remember what phrase he's supposed to be performatively upset about on behalf of constituents that he's trying to win.
Wrong. That's where we are right now. Do we support the police or we don't support law enforcement? Do we want people to commit crimes to serve their time, or do we want to let them out on the street? Do we want our
let them out on the street?
High-income earners to stay here, to pay their taxes, to help with our city, or we don't? So we're just...
I don't want that.
That's the beauty.
I think voters in the Democratic primary show that they are thoroughly rejecting everything that you are proposing. That's not an accident. That was very intentional.
Of running against him. There's no gray areas. I'm just going to lay out my case for the future of the city to continue to create opportunities for working class people in a safe environment. I'm going to lay out the case. And New Yorkers are going to have to make the determination. 9% stated what they want. Now we're going to find out what the other 91% want.
This is very serious because 9/11, when it happened to, some call New York City the greatest city in the world.
Yes.
When that happened. Devastating when we saw that. So do we want
some people say this.
Son, that maybe the mayor of the city to speak like this to make it seem like it's not a big deal?
For someone to say globalize it? What's that?
No, I think this is concerning. And when he said about cops just 5 years ago in a tweet, June of 2020, he tweeted saying, "We don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need to do is defund the NYPD." This is that candidate. Just so you know.
Yes.
That's what he said, New York, if you're watching this. But your deal with New York mayor uses budget tricks to keep as many cops on possible.
But he didn't run on this, unfortunately. He moderated this position. He ditched the slogan because he knows it's unpopular. And he is not just trying to be an assemblyman. He was actually trying to run for a very, very large office. And so the promise that he changed it to is that there is not going to be an increase. I don't think, maybe even there may not even be a reduction. It's probably just going to, he said, the budget's going to stay the same. It's just a matter of like changing how it's allocated. That's it.
No to fake cuts, defund the police. That's the guy. That's 5 years ago. You don't change a lot. You change in 10 years. You change in 20 years.
Right.
You're literally talking to somebody who has changed his party affiliation like 4 times. You spent like 30 minutes on that, dude. And now he's like, people don't really change like ever. And if they do, it's like not that quick.
This is the core, and now he's kind of trying to reposition himself. But I want to wrap it up with this, a couple questions, and then we'll finish it up. I think one thing that's going to be a big curveball for you is the following. Mm-hmm. In your city.
1980s pinstripe blazer. I'm more offended by the fit. These guys intentionally get their suits tailored to be like way too tight so they look like more muscular and shit, but it just looks like they're wearing ill-fitting clothing.
There was a major trade that happened. There was a guy that used to play for the Yankees, Juan Soto, that went to the Mets. How are you going to handle it when the Yankees, let's just say if Yankees face the Mets this year in the World Series, how is that going to affect the election? That's catastrophic if you think. You got to take a position. What are you going to do?
Well, I hope you, I don't know if you have the picture of my hat that I wore, my hat during the playoffs, the Yankee Mets hat.
You got one that has both? Is that what you have?
There's a hat.
Go to Images, Rob.
That I have.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Were you ever a Yankees guy or no? Were you ever a Yankees fan?
Once a team is in the playoffs, I am a New Yorker.
But how about regular season?
No, like Adams' suit. How could you not? Probably custom-made Turkish fit just for him.
I grew up with the Mets.
You're a Mets guy.
Yes. I grew up
who's
with
your favorite? Who's your favorite baseball player? Like, who was your guy coming
of
up?
all time?
Yeah, who's your favorite?
Tommy Agee, Ed Kranepool. You look at Cleon Jones, Tug McGraw. Those were good, solid players. 69 was my year.
Wow.
I remember sleeping with.
I was don't know where the sentence is gonna go. I was just checking to see like how much is left or whatever, and I noticed that they titled this Mamdani's father praises suicide bombers. Not a thing that he did, but whatever.
Tom Seaver jersey and just hugging it. I love those players.
Pitcher.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Did you play? Were you a guy that? What sport did you play?
I played just about every sport.
That's cool.
Basketball, baseball, football.
I did it all. He's so humble.
Sports. And sports is important. My son also played a great deal of sports: soccer, rugby, football.
Respect.
Right. And it builds that character.
Fully.
You're going to strike out, but there's other innings. When just think about where I was 15 months ago. Think about that. And God
I think if you want to win, you should probably not look to the past or remind voters of what you got up to in the last 15 months to 2 years, right?
Good.
You should probably just shut the fuck up and try to move forward so that you aren't asked about your scandals.
All I did was get up every day and deliver for the city. When you do an analysis of the day I was indicted and how much progress we made in the city after that, it showed New York grit. It's who we are as New Yorkers and really as Americans. Because I said
again, improvement in this context means collaborating with MAGA and the Trump administration to get your indictments dropped.
To myself, that mother that's living in public housing, no matter what she's going through, she has to get up and feed those children. And mommy told me that. She said, "Listen, get up. You got to get up. Never surrender. Fight for what you believe in." I believe in the city, and I was sworn to protect.
I don't know why I thought those statements and words of encouragement were going to be more profound than always believe in yourself, never give up.
Serve them and deliver them, and I was not going to give up no matter what I went through.
Well, we're rooting for New York to make the biggest comeback and be that great city, safety, the whole nine. And
why hasn't he done it already then?
It concerns me who this guy is that's running in a big way, because everything New York City stands for, you've always thought about how New York City was with cops, on how they...
Again, this is some naturalized immigrants, or naturalized citizen on naturalized citizen violence, because, again, Patrick Bet-Davidson is not an American-born citizen. He was born in Iran. He came to the United States and became one. Zoran Mamdani came at age 7 and then became a naturalized citizen 5 or 6 years ago, maybe, something like that. So for him to act like, I know what's what, and I know what the true American values are, and Zoran Mamdani, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. It's dude, given the preconceptions that are baked into your ideology, how the fuck do you square that? He ain't no more or less American than you are.
Because everything New York City stands for, you've always thought about how New York City was with cops, on how they cleaned the street with the mobs in the 70s and 80s, to what happened in the 2000 with Giuliani, what happened, how clean it was, right?
Yeah, broken windows policing that was found to be illegal.
You always think about sports with New York. New York is sports.
Yes.
Everything is sports with New York, and in entertainment and in finance, private equity, hedge funds. It's a very, very important city to the fabric of America. Truly, it's very, very important. So I'm excited to see what happens. But I will tell you, if the Mets and the Yankees go to the World Series and the election has happened at the same time, the amount of eyeballs that's going to be on that city, I hope you're ready for it, because it's going to be bonkers if that takes place.
And we got the World Cup coming.
Yeah, I know, and I think the final is going to be at the Jet Stadium,
yes,
right?
Cup of what?
It's going to be, in New York and...
Oh, wait, this is soccer, right?
Jersey put it together.
That's right.
Exciting time.
I know it is. Definitely. We're looking forward to going to the game. And folks, if you're watching this and you would like to support the mayor, Rob, if we can please put the website up that we can send them to.
Oh, my God. Just doing free promo for Mayor Eric Adams. What a fantastic, definitely not a total softball puppies interview. Just uncritical adulation, man. All right. Well, if you're watching on Twitch and you haven't followed me already, you should, so you can know every time I go live, which apparently is sometimes 5 in the morning now. And if you want to subscribe, you can do so. You can get access to an ad-free experience as well as emotes. And if you want, you can share the love of that experience and gift it to other people that are in chat. If you're watching on YouTube, you should like the stream. That way it pushes it out to other people, and subscribe to me. And you can always have my old VODs that you miss in your subscription feed, which I timestamp. So if you want to support the stream, you can go ahead and follow the donation link pinned in my Twitch chat or in my YouTube description box. I'm at Straighterade or Straighterade_ on everything. And I think I'm going to call it, because I'm finally getting tired, you guys, because I only streamed because I couldn't fall asleep. I have my debate set for Hutch, with Hutch, I guess tomorrow now, because it's already Sunday. So tomorrow, Hutch and I are going to be debating. I don't know what time. We're going to be talking about the ContraPoints stuff, so excited for that. I may or may not stream later today. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. But in the meantime, where am I sending you guys? Let's see. Oh Lord, good luck to you. You will do awesome. Yeah, I have like he did like a whole VOD. Like he gave like his takes, and then he reacted to like Hassan's take to it, and then he reacted to Vash's take to it, or something like that. So I have to go through all of those and see if there's like anything that might be worth knowing, like before we get into the conversation, so I can just skip, you know, a back and forth on something that I could just maybe know about him already. Let's see. Let's send you guys to who's awake. Is Redolin awake? Let's go to Redolin Thought. Hell yeah. All right, sending you guys to Redolin Thought. I'll be back. Thanks for spending your early morning with me. Bye, guys.